even individual models, you can set how it's rendered, you know, single line, default, minimalist, things like that. I was wondering if there's a way to know, especially if you're going to do like videos or anything like that to create your effects, whether there's a way to know where the video is being placed in relation to the larger model.
It sounds like you're like that's something you need to do in setup, in your setup tab.
Okay.
Well,
There's a setting there. It's like
here. This is where you're going to have your whatever,
right.
And it needs to be in a location.
Right.
And are you talking about the location of the actual file?
No. Because
okay.
So like if you right click, if you click on a model group, do you have any groups in your?
Oh hell yeah.
Okay, there you go. So you see how it says default layout mode is grid as per preview?
Yes, grid as per preview.
Or they're also so that you've got single line, minimal,
right.
all of that.
Right.
And
they're
then,
putting it back to the default's going to go back to minimal grid.
Okay. What does that do though?
I don't know. That's a good question for Gil. since he totally screwed me over and redesigned this whole damn screen that I really, really hate.
Okay, so then in the sequencer
I'd rather have the create model button, but I'm
in the sequencer tab you have the same thing though. In under layer settings or something.
I'm just going to create a new sequence here real quick. No, not open. Let's create new. And I do like the quick start.
Mm-hmm. So okay. So in I think it's layer settings. No, layer settings. Excuse me. So you have the same thing there. You have render style. Default
per preview.
And then
here.
If you click on props, it can be like single line, stuff like that. But
okay,
I'm trying to wrap my head, like I know it does something different.
Yes, it does. Here is and let me find a where's my pixel star? Wrong view. I use this group here. Oh, this is the new addition. Thanks to, I think Dan did this. He put the colors of your single channel ACs right there, so you can tell. I was so excited when I saw that. I was like, yay! Anyway,
he showed that to us on Saturday.
And did you see the new color palette save and load too? That's
look at this!
He's still working on it.
Yep.
Look at that! Holy shit! Excuse my French. I got to look. I'm really excited about today's release. This is like the greatest thing in the world to me.
Yeah, click save down there, and you'll see it. It puts actually a horizontal bar showing you the colors, so you can see what they look like. It's pretty tight.
So if I change this to this, whatever it is. Oh, look at that.
That's what I needed.
Yeah, that is awesome.
That's what a lot of us needed, I think.
Yeah, that's something that's discussed.
Okay, so back to your question. Peak star. Here we go.
Okay.
Let's bring the model preview down here.
You don't need to mute it.
Okay, so we've got layer setting, and you want to do it as preview, or as preview. This is. There's got to be a better way to do it. Here we go. We'll try the morph. I think that will work a little better. Per preview, per default. They're about the same.
Right.
Okay.
And sometimes it'll do single line.
Yeah.
And then in the groups, you've got the middle. I'm just trying to understand like what it's doing, particularly because I like to bring in pictures and I like to bring in videos and and being able to understand when I'm looking at a video, like, oh, okay, this is how it might translate.
Oh, Gil just sent me a message. I've had a couple crashes. Yeah.
While you're doing that, I have a question. Is the Steve that's listed on there, is that Steve G?
Say that again.
Is Steve going on here yet?
Jerome, yes, I'm here.
Okay, it didn't have your full name. I was wondering.
Steve, you're going to take over.
I'll take over, and you guys are ready.
Oh, you're ready.
Give me a couple minutes.
Keep
Keep going there.
Keep going. Okay.
Let me know when you're fixing to do it because I'm going to record it.
Let's see. Let me move this to a non standard prop here. Where's my reindeer? Those are all AC. There's default per line and single line. So it does render a different way. Usually with a peak star, like there's 5 strands in here, and this is thanks to the modeling in XLights.
There it goes.
There it goes. Because now it's rendering as a single line. It's starting at the start of the string and rendering the whole way through the string.
Okay.
So then you have the layered star.
What the?
Whoop, that's not what I wanted to do. And then you have the default, which is from right to left. Well, actually, I changed it. So this is the morph here is. Let me pull down the effects setting for you. So here's the effects setting. I have it set to go from full sweep up.
Right.
So we have a standard morph going full sweep up.
Okay.
And you're not limited to just this preview. This is how the model's built. If you remember 2 years ago, we all built like 3 or 4 different models so that we could get different effects from the model. We could get different placement of pixels, and the effect is rendered different ways depending on the model.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you change, this is the render style over top of the model, and this is actually very, very useful. Per preview sometimes is the same as the default, but if you have single line, it's going to look for the individual single line that it should start out. And if you change, the rotate.
So then when we're setting up our models, and it offers all those things like minimal grid, per preview, is that...
Again, I'm not sure. Let me send Gil a message.
I'm just wondering, are those connected? Like, do they have anything to do with each other? Because for my model groups, I've been setting it up at minimal.
The minimal grid is when the model groups first came out, and let's say you had a group in the bottom right hand of your screen and you did a color wash to start right at the timing mark, you wouldn't see that model group light up until the effect got all the way across your preview, because the effect was rendered based on the entire size of your display. Okay. So then came from the complaints, and that was from user feedback, that new feature came in there where you want to render based on the grid size. So if you say you make a group and you lay it out and it's taking up 400 by 400 pixels, that's essentially how that effect will be rendered on a 400 by 400.
Okay, but so
we have the horizontal per model, vertical per model. This looks like pretty much the default layout mode. Looks like everything that's in the buffer setup in the render style. Are they linked?
I don't know if they're linked, because one is for a group, the other one, this layer setting, is for a specific model. I doubt it.
Okay, so if I create a group of, when I create a group of models, it's going to, and I set it as minimal or something, it's going to squeeze and only apply the effect to the minimal required area, of that
Correct.
model.
That's all I do. I don't delve into it any further than that because it works.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now, see, that's what I'm thinking. Is like if I download a square video or a 16:9 video, I want to understand how it's being squashed, squished, or otherwise.
Well, that's interesting because I never even took notice of it until recently. That like this group here is on minimal grid. Meanwhile, all arches are on the bells are on grid as per preview.
Right. So, what does as per preview mean? Does that mean it's treating this entire canvas as a render area?
The best thing to do is put in a sequence, drop an effect, and find out. That's the fastest way you can find out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want to see? Let's see. That's the bells aren't really a good. Let's do the pixel trees.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure some of the new ones are too newer than the manual, but I know it's gone over in the manual as well.
Has he read the manual?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Just checking.
No, I have. This is more clarification. The manual is good, but with these kind of things, is it more kind of under the hood, kind of trying to understand what it's doing under the hood, so I know which to apply.
Okay, I understand that, and we're getting really kind of far afield from what we originally started with this. Why don't we get Steve to step up to the mic here?
Yeah.
And
Yes, please.
Yeah, no, this
Okay.
is just more to pass the time away, by all means.
Well,
I gotcha.
the time is fast.
All right. Thanks, Clyde. I missed most of what you said in my drive home there, but
You didn't miss anything. I said nothing important. Ever.
all right. Let me.
I think what we need to do is possibly get an advanced seminar set up. If somebody perhaps would get Gil or somebody like that to come in and do the advanced seminar.
I would love to get Gil to come in because he knows how it all works. He gets it.
Okay. Anyway, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Steve.
All right. Thank you. Let me share my screen here. You cannot share while the other participant is sharing. All right. I'll wait for.
I don't want to. I'm done sharing. I'm done sharing for the day. I don't want to share anymore. How do I do that?
Yeah, you have to drop down and unshare.
Well,
Look at the top.
where I'm looking at. Oh, there. Oh, that top. It's all the way on the other. Okay. New share. No, not new share. Quit sharing. Come on. Share computer sound. Oh, there's where I can share the sound. Stop share. Hey, there's John Storms back on my screen again.
That's scary.
He doesn't look impressed.
Look, John. Yeah, I know. I have a long way to go, John. I have a long way to go. Why aren't your snowflakes going?
Somebody's dog's barking.
Okay. So let me see if I can go over layers. I have this. So let's go into present mode. No, I'm using Windows on a Mac. I know it's sacrilegious, but that's what I'm doing.
It's wrong in every way.
So if we just back up a little bit and take a little bit of history, with XLights 4, mostly everything is backwards compatible with XLights.
Steve, is that your dog?
No, I don't have a dog. I don't have my dog's not barking. We can look at the Zoom and see whose mic goes green when the dog barks and mute them.
It was Jeff. He muted.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
I took care of it.
Thanks to throw me under the bus. I'm going to set my dog on you.
So I used John Storm's of past presentation deck here and modified it. So here's what I'll talk about first. XLights 3, we had 2 simultaneous effects only per model on the grid. And we could choose between those 2 modes. And like I said, XLights 4 is backwards compatible with those modes. So we're somewhat in a framework designed with backwards compatibility. If you never saw XLights 3, here it is. You had effect 1 and effect 2. And you can see I have this placed on a mega tree. It was text-based, cell-based, and you can see all the options for those 2 effects. We have bars and meteors. That's it. And likewise, those modes, all the blending modes are here, are also in XLights 4 with a couple extras that XLights 3 didn't have. So knowing that, why we have the way things are in XLights 4 is for the backwards compatibility with 3 and just the add-on. So that kind of give you some sort of background. I'll go over what all these modes mean, what the other ones not near mean, and how to use them. All right, I'm going to close XLights 3. Don't need that anymore. Oops. Let's get XLights 4 up. First things first, a little housekeeping. With all these effects across the top, this is the way I set my window up. I saw Clyde had a little differently. You hold down the Alt key and you hit 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have 4 options for your effect icon size. So depending on your prescription, your monitor resolution, you can change that as need be. Used to be I could fit everything with the Alt 3. Now I have to go down to Alt 2. And that's the way I do it. I don't use that other window that has all the effects because I have them right here. I don't need to use 2 sets of effects on my layout. That being said, my philosophy is this. All those effects across the top, starting with on and go into wave, they're alphabetical except for the first 2, on and off. I don't know why. I think of XLights as a kitchen, and these are your ingredients, and you're the chef. Each one of those effects can be used on its own, just like garlic can be fed to you on its own, but each one of those is an ingredient, and you can use these ingredients to make other effects, and you do that with layers. How many layers? I think it's Sean's tested up over 200 layers per model. Typically, you only need 4 if you're going to do it manually. You can see in this example here, I have about 20 or 30. And those are from, I'll get to that, why you would need so many effects in a sequence. Feel free to ask questions. So I'll go over the first blending mode. At the expo, people wanted to know, how do you add a layer to a model? In your sequence, you just right-click and you can say Insert Layer above and below. There was some talk today on one of the requests. I had to insert multiple layers at one time, and I think they may implement that. It's just keeping this right-click menu clean, if you will, for now.
Yeah, neat.
So,
Although, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll start with the first blending mode, which if you do not select anything at all on any mode, if you just stick an effect on a model, it's going to come out to default as normal. And normal is just as you would expect. Oops. I'm going to show you my model preview. Here I have a curtain. One of the things to know about normal is wherever there's black pixels, an effect below it will show through. So part of our effect mixing is why would you want to do that? Because these effects are somewhat boring. If you're playing 10 sequences in your show and you have these 32 effects, and most likely you're going to use the same 10 effects over and over, you can combine them to make new effects. I want to go back to my presentation real quick. Oops. I came up with, in my philosophizing among myself, why do we have multiple layers? Here are the 4 reasons. Mixing of effects, and I just went over that, using the black portion of one effect to reveal another. 2, model geography. There are 2 ways that you can put multiple effects on multiple portions of the model at the same time. Top and bottom of your mega tree. You can have maybe the 4 quadrants of a mega tree. You can have a thirds, fifths, however you want it. We can do that with layers. Third reason, effect repeating across the model, especially with morphs. Multiple morphs at the same time across the model. However, the morph effect itself allows you to do that as well. And the 4th is effect masking, and is probably one of the complex parts of this. I'll try and make it easy to understand. But any effect can be used as a modifier for any other effect. The most common thing to do is use a color wash to modify the colors of another effect. Somebody asked today, why don't you add all the options to fire to change it and scroll through all the colors? And I thought about it for a second. I thought, well, if you use 2 layers and put color wash under fire, you could do that. So I did that real quick before the show, and there's what it looks like. I have fire, color wash, and the colors I've selected in the color wash here are scrolling through the fire. And as I go across all these effects, blending modes, I'll show you how I did that. So backing up to a normal, if I just have one layer with one effect, it shows normally on the model as you would expect it to. So here we have a curtain, and it shows normally. I need to do no other mixing if in that black portion of the model I want to show another effect there. Make sense so far? No objections, I'll move on. So how these effects show up on this list is how I'll present them. If you want to learn about all the effects, you have 5 seconds to click on this, and that what they do stays up on your screen for 5 seconds, and then it goes away. So effect 1 and effect 2. With multiple layers, why do we just have effect 1 and 2? I showed you that with XLights 3. It's the carryover. And the concept is this. The effect on you have selected is effect 1. Since I have butterfly selected here, it now is effect 1. If I insert another effect down, it is effect 1. And everything below it added up is effect 2. That's why getting to more than 2 to 4 layers can be somewhat tedious and confusing. And I'll show you that. So a trick that I do is sometimes when I'm sequencing, I can't decide on a certain portion of a song or a timing mark which effect to use. So I'll insert a second effect and not use it. Or I'll click on it to decide which effect should I use. So I'll say, do I want butterfly or do I want bars? So so in this timing mark I have for the top effect, which is layer 1, I have effect 1. Regardless of what's underneath it, it's only going to play effect 1. Likewise, here I have bars and butterfly. And when I select this timing mark, it's going to show butterfly because down here, the blending mode is set to effect 2. And no matter what I put on effect 1, even if I delete effect 1, it's not going to change what displays. Pretty simple. Masks. 1 is mask, 2 is mask, and we have unmask for 1 and 2. The concept of mask is this. Masks are black. Regardless of the colors you've chosen, a mask is black, and a mask comes in the shape of the effect you've chosen. So think of masking tape. You have a black chalkboard, you put tape on it that's blue, and you paint red all over the chalkboard. When you peel that tape away, you have a black where the tape was covering. Masks are black, and I'll show you that. So here we have bars on layer 1 and a butterfly in layer 2. So visualize what that's going to look like before I show you. The bars are going to be black on top of butterfly. Or spirals, not bars. So there we are making an effect using 2 XLights effects. I can't hear anyone. Are you guys there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we're here.
So effect 2 is mask. It's just reversing that. Maybe you want to see more butterfly, and there I have the ripple effect. Let's say you go, well, that ripple's black there. What if I put the butterfly on the ripple? Well, we kind of do it with the marquee here, so it stays fixed size. That's what the unmask is. So it's opposite. Instead of being black, it's the color of the effect you've chosen. So you can go, well, let me just take this marquee and say, well, the marquee, I only have, I chose these colors, but I want them to change. I want it to kind of scroll through. Well, we have color wash, and we know the color wash effect scrolls through those colors. And we set that up right, and that's what it would do. It would go through those colors. So always remember your go-to is the color wash effect because it goes through all the colors that you've selected in the palette. So you can do that with any effect where the effect might not allow you to choose those colors. But using masking, you can do that and combine them together.
How would you do that with the marquee and having it actually be a marquee?
You can't. Masks are black. Masks are the shape of the effect in black. So the shape of the effect is marquee. You don't have a marquee anymore. You just have the shape of it. Just as if with fire that kind of scrolls through those colors. If you just had fire by itself, you would kind of have those if we came in here and adjusted the fire hue. If I change this hue, it's going to do nothing. It's just using the shape of fire. But since I'm using it as a mask, now it's using the colors of the effect below. So it is a marquee. When we have that, it's the shape. And you can adjust still the band size and the position. I guess you could kind of play with it. But it's still the color. Only the shape is what stays with masks.
So in this situation, though, you're working with unmask?
This is unmask.
Versus mask.
So here's a mask.
Right.
Which is one, we're saying layer 1 is the mask. Now, by itself, layer 1 bars that's bars, right? We're saying that's a mask, so think of the white is what's going to get filled in with the color when I put it on top of a butterfly. So you somewhat need an effect that has black in it. If we chose butterfly as a mask, well, guess what? And we put it on top of fire. All the pixels are used with the butterfly effect. So it's like you want to paint a piece of wood, but you put masking tape over the whole wood and you painted it. What's going to be left? Nothing. You need an effect that has some sort of black underneath it to see what it's doing.
What about the background skip and stuff in Butterfly? Will that count?
It would. So if we put butterfly on top of that and we edit it out and we come in here and got some chunks, we would see fire through there because there's the black. And let's make that bigger. And let's make something more obvious, like say bars underneath there. You can see the bars going up through that. So you can get creative and make things. I see sometimes when I watch effects or people's sequences, I go, how did they do that? And I'll try and recreate that. So mask it, we can go on for hours and hours and all the combinations, and you can just kind of sit here and say, well, you know that the spirals effect is a good candidate to start with for masks. And you can go, wow. And then what I would do is I'll just sit and let's say, what does that look like if it's a mask for butterfly? Well, on this I chose too many colors. So let's make this simpler and let's delete this. Let's get this one, like an even number of. Okay. And this is how I would do it. I sit here and, do we make one mask? No, one is mask. And then I say, okay, what does that look like on circles? What does that look like on color wash? What does that look like? And it's just discovery, really. You go, oh, that's different. That's curtains there. You can see how the curtain is set to left to right, and you can use curtain to wipe things away, which is true. I see people say, I have this effect and I want it to wipe away to black. Well, you can use curtain to do it, or you can do it with the morph. Those are effects that fill up the screen with all the pixels. So without looking at curtain, let's go edit it. And it was set to left to right, just as you see it. So if we said curtain center, there's the curtaining opening up to black. Therefore, that's what we get. You just have to combine them, play. Kind of opposite for unmask, just goes the other way. So it's either layer 1 is the unmask or 2 is the unmask. Here's another sample of that. We have the butterfly on top of the ripple effect. What if butterfly was on fire? There you go.
In what situations do you choose between unmask or mask, and specifically number 1 versus number 2?
It doesn't matter in some instances. In some instances it does. And that would be sometimes I do it out of laziness. I already put the effect down and I don't want to drag it to another layer and then change the order. Or you have to remember that when you have a sequence and the way it's rendered, the sequence is rendered from top to bottom. But when it gets to a model, the layers are rendered bottom to top. So the top layer is always layer 1. What does that mean? Let's say let's go back to 1 as a mask.
Quick question. How did you drag that?
What did drag what?
When you changed layers?
Oh, so I highlighted effect and I just hit the down arrow. It will
Oh,
go
I
to,
thought you did it with a mouse.
it'll do it to the next available layer.
Thank you.
Can you do it? I don't know if you can. It's the easy way. So let's keep going. 1 reveals 2. This is somewhat like the first effect I showed you, normal. In XLights 3, normal would have not shown like this. If there was no pixels there, the lower layer wouldn't show up in the black area. So we had 1 reveals 2. It's a concept of the alpha channel, and I think Gil had something to do with that, being a Photoshop user. And so 1 reveals 2 is somewhat redundant with normal. The end result looks the same. Shadow 1 on 2 gets into the hues. So here we have snowflakes on top of fire, and kind of like on top of let me see if I was to delete this fire. So these snowflakes are blue with red dots, and we put the fire back. This fire was somewhat of a yellowish hue. It's mixing the hues together. So you have to remember with shadow. I think if you highlight this, it says shadow. Oops. Takes a brightness and saturation from 1, use the hue from 2. I don't remember that. I just kind of do them, and this is a layer blending mode that I typically don't use. We have one called layered, which is almost like normal. As you can see, these meteors are falling down, and when they hit the layer below, they just stop. Or they go behind it. You can't see anything. So we're going to use the same 2 effects in average. Where they don't stop, it keeps going down, but where the effects overlap, it's going to average the hue and the color and the saturation. So layers are actual layers. Just if you took a piece of paper and put it on top of another one layer is going to blank out the other. Or average is going to, if you have like 2 transparencies and stack them up, the colors are going to average out. Bottom and top is as it sounds. Easy way to put 2 effects on a model at the same time. Bottom and top. Layer 1 is the bottom. It's kind of backwards there. You see butterfly is layer 1 and bars is layer 2. Left and right, guess what left and right is? It's right and left. So what can you do with all these? You have 32 effects times 200 layers, so you'd have to take 32 to the 200th power, and that's how many different effects combos you can make. However, most of them would look dumb. So here's some samples I've come up with, either that I've created or borrowed from some sequences, and I'll show you multiple layers here. We can see morphs. It looks like there's going to kind of a rainbow effect going one way and then the other. So if I play that, it's exactly what we got. There's a case for multiple layers. Why would you need multiple layers if you wanted to do something like that? A trick here, I have the off effect here for this time span of, let's say, 108 to 112. And when I click that off effect, it plays for that duration everything in this cell. It's a trick I learned from Gil. It's just a way for presentations, or you're working on an effect and you want it to repeat over and over. And people say, well, I have to come up and highlight this and hit start, and I have to hit stop, but it doesn't start. Just put an on effect there and click it. And while it's playing, you can come in here and fine tune what you're working on. So there's a tip for the day. It'll just keep going until you click on something else. Here's another one. Kind of reminds me of something from Galaga. This is like a flourish and a mega tree. Can make that bigger. And there's a little similar thing with some color accents on it.
Did you hand build those two?
No, I modified some of these. So I talked about earlier, you can see I use 20, 30 layers here. Here's one I got from one of Gil's sequences, and it looks like it's multiple layers, but you can see, I swear this is only 2 layers. And it's the morph. And when you do morphs, you can tell it to repeat. So this is a morph that set to skip every other line and repeat 12 times. This tree is 24 legs with only 2 layers. So kind of related to this, how would you do this if you had this effect and it's really great and you wanted to use it in another sequence? Well, let me delete this effect here, and I'll show you how. I'm a heavy user of the effect presets. When you right-click, you have effect presets, and you can see that in my setup, I have a lot of effect presets. A lot of them are junk, a lot of them are ones that I use. So that effect I showed you, I called Missile Defender. You can see it has 2 layers. These numbers are mind joggers of how many layers you need. If you were to, let's say, apply a preset, and this is 10, it's 10 layers, and you had 5 models with only 2 layers each, it would fill all your models, not just that one. So to prevent that, this is just telling you better have 10 layers before you do this effect. So this Missile Defender one, if I just need to double click it, and here's that effect back, because I saved it as a preset. And how do you do that? Well, you get an effect you like, you can highlight it, or you come to presets and you could say a new one. Let's say demo missile. Delete it, and here's my demo missile. Double click it, and there it is. That simple. What if you wanted 2 effects? What if you wanted your entire sequence? You can highlight your entire sequence and save it as a preset. it would make your XML file really big for your RGB effects. I don't see a reason to do that, but you could do it. So here's one. Let's red, white, interlace stagger tree. Let's see what this does. This is one I created. So it's just some morphs on certain parts of the tree, different colors that are interlacing. I probably made that one to line up to the music somewhere. So one of the things I mentioned was geography. Some effects allow you to do geography-based placement, like a morph. Other ones don't, like butterfly. A butterfly effect will, oops, take up the whole model. We'll get there in a second. What if you wanted butterfly just to be in the middle third of your model? We have that on this layer, new feature on our layer settings. And this is this render style. For this yellow box here is representing where in the model this effect's going to be placed. And you can drag it down. Previously, I had to do this with layer masks. I needed to put a color wash on the top third, a color wash of black on the bottom third, put that on top of this, on top of this butterfly. Now with this render mode, or it's called the sub-buffer, you can place this anywhere. Let's say you just wanted the middle section. There you go. Sometimes this can be hard. You can see I'm trying to click and get the corner. I want to just, instead of having to drag each corner, and if you drag this yellow into this black, sometimes it's not a contrasty colors to get that back, and you might be missing the top row of your tree there. You can see I miss a row. You can't see it on this model. Easy way, just double click. Now you're back to square one again.
It would be really nice if you could drag the box around once you sized it down.
I think you can.
How?
The mouse. Let me see. I don't think you can.
Yeah, I've tried. You can move the corners, but you can't move the box.
That's fine. It takes 2 seconds longer. So let's say we did. This is another way. This would kind of make that left-right layer blending mode unnecessary, meaning that you could put butterfly on the left side and then add another layer and put some other effect on the right. Or if you wanted, do quarters or however you wanted to do it. This is when you hear someone talk about the sub buffer. This is what they're talking about. And then, rotating effects. Some effects, their options allow you to rotate them. Some you can just do it here. Speaking of rotating them, you can have effects rotate while they're playing. And that's a rotozoom. I won't go into that. That's a whole other topic. So before I keep going, is there anything you want me to review so far? Come now.
I think you're doing quite well.
Okay. So gone through those. What can you do? So I have this create diamonds, and I'm going to delete this. Let's see if my preset works right for this diamonds. Back in XLights 3, I sat playing with all these effects, and I came up with this set. Let's see if this works. The ultimate of mixing two layers together. And I was sitting there thinking, what if I took two spirals and made them exactly opposite of each other? And I went through all the blending modes. And by accident, I discovered this. And they don't look perfect because of my model. And I say perfect diamonds. I can show you in a sequence where they're perfect. But basically, well, let's just show you what I've done here. I have 2 spirals, and I'm going to delete this guy. So you can see that it's just red and white, and spirals going down. If I do an edit undo, this bottom layer is red and white going up. It's the exact same effect, I just changed the direction. One's going up, one's going down. If we come and look, let's just validate that. 4.8, 49. Boom, it's at 1. That's why they're not even. They need to be exactly 5.0. And that kind of made them round. So in that, people, how did you do that? Well, there's 2 effects. You could change these values and get all kinds of different shapes. There's one in here I have called the tiger stripes, because if you get these just right, and it kind of looks like tiger stripes and these ribbons, and you can change the thickness. And why is it? Because I have layer 2 set as the mask. So you think all the black there is the other layer's spirals. It's kind of moving there, but it's hard. It might be hard to visualize that. Let me delete that and add this back. Here's another version of this one. So just by playing with the sliders, just by accident, that's an easy one to visualize. The black portion there is really the other layer. Spiral's just masking it out. And without that secondary layer, that's what the first layer was. They were just kind of, I just adjusted them.
Can you show us what the second one looks like?
There it is. Visualize the black there.
Yeah.
And there it is in colors on it.
Okay.
So people, how do you do that? Let's do it from scratch. Let's just take the spirals and make it look decent, kind of pleasing to the eye here. I'll just say like that. And for ease of sake, we'll go -3, 50, and 1. And I'm just going to copy this and paste it below. And I should have just put this, let me just say normal. Now this layer, the first one is 1. The second one needs to be exactly negative of the first one. So I set this to -1. And I can do that with the slider. I'll just type it in. So there they are, kind of overlapping. I have on this one -3. You need to make the second layer exactly opposite on the wraps. And without setting the mask, you can start to see how the those diamonds are going to come into play. It's where the colors overlap. And then once we come and set layer 2 as the mask, there's our diamond type shape. All we need to do is get our thickness just right, and they will be diamonds. If the movements aren't the same, they're going to move up and down the palette reps. So this is just one of thousands of effects that you can make. You may like it and just save it as a preset. Presets are available to you on all your sequences. And just something I discovered by just sitting there playing with XLights.
How do you decide which effect to put the layer on?
I always put on 1 or 2. What do you mean?
Like in this situation, you left 1 as normal and made 2 as mask, as opposed to doing the effect on the first one, the first effect going to as mask.
I'm pretty sure since these are the exact same effect, the same shape, it's going to look identical if we went the other way, and we can test that. So let me just try that here. Here's one already made off my preset. So it's probably just going to change the direction. I would say if we have this say 1 is the mask, if I change this to 2 is mask, what happens? It just changed the location of the red and the white briefly.
But you don't set 2 as mask on both effects. You just do it on one.
It's going to take, because they render top to bottom, and there's nothing under 2, doesn't matter what you do to 2. As long as you don't set effect 2 to 2, you can do anything to 2 and nothing's going to change. When it gets to the top, the effects are all additive. So as the rendering goes up, it just, when you render an effect, it goes up like this, and what's there, what's there, what's there, and what's a blending mode on this one, and the very last one wins. So you can come and highlight this and say, create all these random effects. And what did it do? Absolutely nothing. Because when it got to the top, this one says 1 is the mask. And what's the next thing under?
Okay, thank you.
That's another thing you could do. I can't say I've come up with a good one, but you can take a sequence and you can do this. Let's just say, create a bunch of tiny marks, come in here and say, create a bunch of random effects. I probably chose too many layers. And you can just kind of come and say, what happened there? We're not getting any preview. I might have to render them to show. But sometimes you might discover something cool, like here's 2 spirals, or you may not think that morph would look good with fire, and you may go, wow. So it's just another playing around, goofing off in discovery. That's how I've discovered most of this.
Where are the presets saved to?
Your RGBFX.xml file.
Okay.
That's where all your models are. So what I did when I started this demo, let's say you have a preset, and let's say I know Tom, Mr. Christmas for a while. Say, Tom,
Yes, sir.
I want to send you this diamonds because you're such a great guy.
Well, thank you.
And let me.
Hey, Steve, didn't you post your RGB effects not too long ago?
I don't remember.
I thought you did.
Okay. Maybe I did, or maybe a sample of it. But this diamond spin right. Let's say, hey, that looks great. I want to send this to someone. I want to sell this effect. We can take that and say, export. And you can save that as just a one diamond spin right effect. And you can mail it to someone. And they can go import. And you can import a single effect that they sent you. Or you can come in and take the XLights RGB effects file, and that's what I did. I went and found one from a previous year, and I import it. So let's go to my 2015 config, and there it is. And when I import it, it's going to import them all again. So here you see I have this group called 2015. And if I scroll up here, I'm in a group 2015, and it just added them on. So if somebody wants to share their RGB effects file with you, that's how you can import all of them. As you can see, I've kind of gave them names that mean something to me. Some I don't know what they mean, but we can just try one. This is Garland reveals fly, so it's probably Garland reveals a butterfly. There you go. And as I see that effect, I go, wow, that'd be cool. Maybe I should do Garland and a color wash because I don't like the pattern of that butterfly because everybody uses it like that, and I've seen it a million times. But what if I just change it to a color? There's something you can do.
That's
Simple
as
as that.
close to a effects library as there's available now, isn't it?
It could be. A lot of these are dumb. Here's a good one though. Pin fly. I use this one a lot. Some of these came from XLights 3, and they didn't. Keith did a really good job. I kept sending him this file and saying they're crashing when I'm importing them. It'd be nice if they had these layers because I'm bringing them in and they have multiple layers. You can see this one, 1,001 layers. I told Keith, I promise you I don't have 1,000 layers on this model. But he fixed it. Seems like that issue came back. Pinfly 2. When you get this just right, it just looks cool. People go, well, that's butterfly or circles. Yeah, on the circles effect and butterfly, both those effects have a one of the modes that's circular. That circles has that, where you're not making little bouncing balls. And also in butterfly, you have that too. Come in butterfly, and I think if you choose one of the modes, there it is. So you can combine that with other effects to make new effects. So you don't have to have all these effects come on a hard start at your timing mark. So that's what these in and out transitions are. So we can see for this, we have a fade out. Likewise, a fade in. The caveat on this is when you are sequencing and you put in a fade on an effect, and here I have it set for half a second. And let's say I do this and I copy it to the next and I go across, it too is going to have a half a second fade out. And maybe you didn't want that. You just wanted it at the end of the chorus. I'm telling you now, be careful with that. That setting will stay on for all future effects. So my transition is set to a 0.5 fade out. Then I come in over here and I'll add a fire and I'll go across. And I might not watch it for, maybe it's over a 10-second time span and I don't catch it. And when I go back and play, all my effects after this first one with the 0.5 fade is going to be applied to all future effects. That's for your in transition, your out transition, your transition type. Be careful. You'll catch it when it's like an explode or a circle like this. But when it's a fade, you might not. So that's a gotcha. That's not giving me grief. It's just time to go back and highlight every effect and take the transition time and reset it to 0. And you can see it's fooling me here. I have transition time already set to 0, but did I click it too fast? Or maybe I don't know how I got rid of that. So the types are kind of self-explanatory. Here's a wipe. Before we had to add 2 layers and do this with a curtain, set the edge at the top and have it close, or do a morph set to black. You can do that too, or you can set it with bars. Now you just have a transition to do that. From the middle. So these are good right at the end. I used this one in a sequence last year and kind of add that, do a fade to that. Square explode. Oh, that's different. Did the from the middle? It's not a from the middle. Here's a from the middle. I put a note to Keith that when you tell explosion, usually it starts small and gets big. He says that's explode. That to me looks like an implode. So to get it to really look like it's exploding, you need to click this reverse until they fix that. You guys agree? An implode starts small and gets bigger?
Agreed.
Cheers.
Agreed.
Keith,
Right
if you're
on.
watching this. So here's another shape, circle explode. I have reversed to make it look like it's exploding.
Is there a way to soften the edges on those?
I don't know. Some of these have adjustments. I don't know what they do. I'm trying to think, how could you soften that? I don't think so.
What about blur?
Yes, it's one I don't use. You probably could use blur. On this layer blending mode, we have morph. We talk about morph. Here's the morph effect. Here's the morph blending mode option. What this does is it slowly changes the effect 1 into effect 2. And I used it once where I had a spiral going, and I had two spirals on two separate layers set identical. I'd had the colors changing from red and green to white and purple. And during that time period, it slowly changed, so I didn't have a hard edge. And I'll go back and show you that. But when I talk to people and say, I'm having a problem with morph, I don't know which one until I go further, the effect or the blend mode. And I'll get there.
Oh, that is pretty cool. I just did it.
So the blinds, the blend. This is another good one for kind of a fast-paced sequence, and it's just ending the chorus or that phrase. Slide checks, kind of a. This one, you can adjust the size on. Even how big those slide checks are. It's out effect with slide bars. Let's see. Somewhat like the checks, just a different shape. What did I do here for spin? Oh, I was getting something from Gil. He had this sequence where I couldn't figure out what the heck he did. And he spun around, let's see, a morph. Now he spun around a fan that was spinning, 3 of them together, and it made this kind of like a kaleidoscope effect. So that was on. I use this. This is a sequence I use in my demo at the expo. I kind of forgot what he did, but that was in the RotoZoom. No, that wasn't. So here's just some more examples of some of my presets. Let's add it off. There it is. I made this one when Morph first came out. And when Morph first came out, it was not as nice as it was in this, as it is now. And you had to set your A1, A2, B1, B2 at starting and endpoints. I just thought, what would it be like if you just kind of swiped up the tree, and there you go. And the way it curves, it kind of makes it look 3D.
Could you show how you did that one, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me, I'm going to copy this, and just how I work, I'll place this over here. So this is just 4 morphs, and I'm going to delete, if I can set a timing mark to delete this guy. Oops, I didn't undo. So here's the first morph. And if we look at it, where does it start? It starts in this position. What's going on? It's touching this other effect here. Making a liar out of me. Something I don't usually do, but I'll do it for this demo as I use the Effect Assist window. So let me turn it on. And this Effect Assist window is matching the way I normally had that. This is how I had the morph going. So it was starting from 1A and 1B. And you saw it kind of swipe up. And then the next morph started, the 1A and 1B started where these 2A and 2B were. So it kind of went up this way. And then I did the third one like that. And the fourth one up here like this. So when you combine them together, and let me stick a effect down here so they'll play together. And to kind of make it look smooth, they overlap a little bit. So before the first one totally fades out, this next one's starting.
What kind of model is this? Is this a 360 tree? Is it a 180?
It's a tree. Let's see.
I think you said it was a 24 strand, right?
That's a 180 tree.
Okay. Is what you did possible with the 360 tree? I mean, could you essentially combine morphs around the tree to kind of sort of get like a seamless single spin up or something?
Yes and no. Yes, it'll look the same, but models have a start and end. So this one actually is a 10 strings. Make it 20. That's why my diamonds didn't work, because it was designed for 24. So this is what now 40, because I have it folded. Let me just make this a normal, say a 100. So this is 24 strands. That'll be 48. Should be 12 strands of. How big's your tree?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, oh shoot. Now I'm on the spot. I don't know.
How many legs?
Like 34, I think.
Okay. 34, so that'd be like 1,700. There's 34. 34 legs in a 360, and I hit save. Let's go back to the sequencer. And I don't know if we have to update. That's going to look funky until I re-render this. So it does kind of go around the back.
That's cool. So theoretically, then you could take that, and where one started, you could start the other one to make it like continue.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
The math is identical. The only thing different is just showing you what it's going to look like.
Mm.
You can do, the one concept of XLights is that all models are a matrix. How many tall, how many wide. If you were to set this model up as a vertical matrix with the same dimensions, 50 pixels up and 36 across, when you played it on your tree, it would look identical. The only purpose of having a tree is pinching those pixels at the top so you can visualize it. Otherwise, it plays identical.
It's really good to know. Thank you.
With the exception of a morph that would maybe that if the tree was part of a model group, and as the morph come across, when does it hit that pixel? So if you set it up as a horizontal matrix, all the pixels on the first string would hit at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you're putting effects right on the tree, then it would look identical. So I typically, when I'm sequencing, I sequence in 180 view. And then when I lay out my tree, I actually did it like a 240 or a 270 degrees. So I wanted to see what the effect would look like. And then when I laid it out, just kind of bending the model, if you will. So layers are your friend. Layers is how you make new effects. If you can see, I have this library of effects that I've come up with. Some of them, a lot of them are just when I first started, I was just got excited and saved them.
What is the Larry King effect?
Larry King. Well, it has 0 layers. What I wanted, Larry King background, how he has just those pixels of the continents and they're just kind of twinkling with different colors. I wanted to simulate that. So you could see it 0, but it probably just was twinkle. And I just wanted to have that kind of thing. I think when I first had all my pixels up, I thought, oh, that'd be funny, have that in the background, and I did a video. So these ones with 0 are ones that didn't import correctly. So I had like the butterfly 1, 2, 3. When I first got XLights, I got excited and got some settings on a butterfly. Oh, let's save it and go. Yeah, okay. So what? It's a butterfly with some chunks taken out. That's not really worthy of saving. You could recreate that very easily.
But the point is, you didn't have to.
That's right. But giving it a name like Butterfly 1, I didn't know what that meant. Larry King, I knew exactly when he asked me what that was. So that covers it for layers.
Steve, could I make a request that you post that for people to load up for themselves, just so they can see what you did?
Oh yeah, I'll definitely send this sequence out. I've sent it once in the past when I talked layers, but I'll send it again.
You've updated this one a lot more than when you sent it out the first time.
Sure. Yeah, I won't save this, and I'll just send it out.
I appreciate that.
They might even appreciate your RGB effects to play around with as well. If you don't mind.
Everybody asks me for that. That's my secret sauce.
Okay, we had to ask though.
I'll send a couple of them out. Like I shared the diamonds one.
What is everyone keeps talking about the RGB effects. What is that?
Okay, so part of what makes up XLights work is the RGB effects. Are talking about the RGB effects XML file. So if we come in here, and this is the way I install XLights, every version gets a new folder. Make a liar out of me. This XLights RGB effects is one of the main files you need to run XLights. And if we edit with Notepad, this is a blank one. Let me show you config and my sequences. What makes up XLights is your XLights networks file, which obviously has your network config, your channels, your IP addresses. So when you save your network config on the layout tab, that's what's saved. You also have, I'm looking, key bindings. If you didn't know, you can edit this file so that if you didn't have enough room or you wanted to sequence faster, you can hit the W key and it puts a color wash. I'm hitting the O key and it hit it off. I'm not using the mouse, and I know that maybe a G key does garlands. You can sequence faster, so if you can have your left hand on the keyboard, your right hand on the mouse, and maybe S puts a spiral in. What if you didn't want S for a spiral? You want an S to do spirograph. Well, you're in luck. You can edit your XLights key bindings file and change it. And it's pretty self-explanatory. There's the key, and it's case sensitive and what it does. You can also have a key do all the settings in that effect. Saved. So I edit mine when I remember what they were. I was using the number keys for some of my effects that I was using a lot of.
Is pause mapped anywhere?
Pause is an effect.
No, I know pause is not an effect. Like play is space, but if you want to pause it,
No. Somebody asked that. Could you do that? I saw that on one of the forums.
yeah, 'cause I use pause quite a bit when I'm doing the lip sync stuff, and having to go up with the mouse up there to pause it temporarily while I adjust a timing mark.
Why not just press the space bar?
Because that stops.
Oh, you want the music to stay where it's at.
Correct.
We just highlight a small section. Guess what? Then you get that set going. And then you adjust this. That's just a workflow. Eventually it's going to get off. Even though the libraries are right, sometimes you got to go back a little bit. It's not as bad as it was with 3. That's the way I do it. So getting back to that question, what is in this magical RGB effects file? This file used to get corrupt in earlier versions, and people would say, I lost all my models. My models are gone. Where'd they go? Well, you can see I have XML bad backup, one with no presets. Okay, I manually saved this. But if we open this one, oops, here are my model names, their configs, and then my presets are in here as well.
It's your secret sauce. I get
And my
it.
model groups, your background image. People say, well, where's my background image saved? Well, it's saved. It doesn't save it anywhere. It just refers to it wherever you called it from. But it refers to it right there in the settings.
And so that's what people are trying to get their hands on, because that's your secret sauce.
Yeah, I'll save some of these. They're not that difficult to make.
I understand.
In
Okay.
XLights 3, I showed you how it looked kind of texty. This is text-based. It still is. So let me show you some here. If we were to go in XLights, and I took these 2 effects and I copied them, and you did something weird like came to Notepad, and you pasted those effects, it's just text. So you could add a preset manually, by just showing you some of the behind the scenes, what's really going on here. It's not that different in XLights 3, how they're saving the data. It's just the text with all the settings for those effects you've done.
By the way, that copy paste text stuff also works for the timing tracks for lyrics, so you can copy like a whole chorus into Notepad and save it and paste it back in, so you don't have to readjust everything.
That is true. You're saying up here. So what I did is when I created this sequence, the timing marks were just numbered 1, 2, all the way up to however, and I just double clicked it and I changed the name. And that was my reference to what am I going to, the blending mode here. So you're saying if this was the chorus effect 1 and I copied that, I really just wanted to paste it, there you go, you're not typing in it again, right?
Negative, no. Like for instance, if you have your layer effect and you right click on effect 1 and say break down phrase, and then you break down the words to phonemes, you can highlight that whole block and copy it. Not the effects, but you have to turn off the timing track to
get that. Gotcha.
Right, and then you can throw that in Notepad and work on the other parts of your song. And when you get to the chorus again, you can just paste it in. It's already broken down and timed.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Hey, a quick question, and I got to run, but thank you so much for this because this was amazing. Is there ever a situation where you would do masking on 3 or more effects? You know, like your diamond thing is 2 effects, but like if you wanted to, I don't know, bring it in so with you know, maybe do a morph on top of it to bring it in or something. I don't know, but is there ever?
Here, I just thought of something. So when I set that up, and I know my layout now, that I had a tree that was 112. Let me see. This is my actual mega tree that those effects were made on. So if I come in the sequencer now and we do let me delete this and do that diamond effect. just come. Let me find it here. Diamond spin right. This should look proper now. There's how it should look. Perfect diamonds. What else could you do with this? You go, well, there's black there. You can make it snow between those, I guess. Drop some snowflakes. Let's see, what would that look like? It would drop on top of them. So now you'd have to sit there and think, how can I get... That's not a good effect. Snowstorm, is that the one? How could I get that to look properly down there? You might have to put this on top as the top layer. And set this to layer 1 be normal. Okay, then you start getting into, well, now this one's the mask. And you have to play with it and think about it, but it could be. When you're doing masking, I've never done more than 2 layers with the mask. I'm just thinking, here's my layers are my shapes that I want to use to modify another layer.
Okay, thank you. Because yeah, I was thinking like even just the ability to do a color wash on your diamonds. You know, you've made the fix, you made it really cool, but now let's say you've got it black, red, and white. What if you wanted it to be changing colors and stuff like that?
That's a good idea. I like where you're going with it. Let's try that. And now you're going to make me think about it all night long.
That's what I do. No, but thank you.
So let's say, is that a color wash? That was color wash, and let's pick, say, purple, green, and blue. And this effect would have to be set to normal. No, because color wash goes over all pixels. So 2 reveals 1. I'd have to play with it. I couldn't, it could be done. That's a good one.
Okay. Well,
Clyde, I know you have something.
No, it's more trying to understand what the limitations are. I don't want to be kicking myself knowing, whether it's me that can't figure it out or if it's a software limitation.
No, you could. I know you could. It's just, I'll figure that one out. Now my mind's going to go all night how to do that.
Well, based on, okay, tell me if this sounds right, but would you put that on the top and then make it like one, like either 1 reveals 2 or 1 is unmask or 2 is unmasked?
Set it on the top, right?
Yeah.
And then 1 would be the unmask. So let's just do it by itself. Let's get one spiral to take on that color. And we would say on this layer that 1 would be the unmasked.
Or is it
one thing that I disagree with Dan Cope on something? He's one of the main programmers. Sometimes where we would expect things to be black, it goes white, and he explained it to me once, and I don't know why it is. So we'd have to reverse these 2.
You do know that
I've got one.
Dan is on the call, don't you?
Hey Dan, can you explain that? Are you on mute? Like here,
That's cool.
putting.
I've worked it out here if you want.
Yes, please.
Go for
Okay.
it, Clyde. What's the secret?
Okay, put your 2 spirals down, and get your diamonds working.
Is a color wash going to go on the bottom?
Yep.
All right.
So I have layer 1 is mask, or 1 is mask. Layer 2, 1 is mask. And there's your color wash.
Son of a bitch. That's awesome.
See?
Yeah, the magician appears.
Yeah. I have no idea why that logically makes sense, but it's cool.
Well, it's a double mask. It's a double layer 1 mask. I never would have thought of that either.
Well, someone asked me earlier, what happens if one is a mask or two is a mask? It doesn't matter if be this because the effects are the same effect, same shape. But in doing that, then you open this yourself
Because
up.
it's rendering bottom to top. I get it.
Yep.
I see. Okay, so you hit the first one and it's saying, hi, I'm a mask. So it almost sounds like 1 is mask versus 2 is mask is saying either I am the mask or the effect right below me is the mask.
Think of it this as it renders, the first thing you have is that the entire model as a color wash.
Yes. And then
What is mask? Think of mask as black. We've just taken masking tape and put it diagonally in one direction, and then we've taken masking tape and put it the other direction, just as you see when they mow the lawn at a baseball stadium and you see those diamond hatches where the two places cross, you have the diamond. It's kind of what we have here.
That makes so much sense. So then in the case of 2 is mask, that's just pointing the finger at a different effect?
Correct.
Okay, I get it.
If you do it on layer 1, you're saying 2 is a mask. And if we did that here, it should look the same. No, it doesn't.
Because it's pointing the duct tape towards the other one or something.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Well, I got to run. I really appreciate it. You've blown my mind, man.
Hey, I got a new effect out of that. Thank you.
Now do I get some secret sauce?
Oh, yeah. I was about to say, I'll trade you.
I'll share this one with you guys.
Beautiful. All right. Bye, guys. This has been great. Take care.
See ya.
Yep.
So I know talking to a couple of guys, they're trying to figure out ways we could, save the, we have the way I showed you to send that to somebody, but maybe add it to a custom effect up in how to get it it'd be nice to have this as a button, a custom button. You can make it really complex. You can make it really hard. I say start out with 2 layers only. Fill isn't one I was thinking of. You asked something yesterday, I saw, Clyde, about combining multiple waves.
Yeah, I had a blonde moment. I've already retracted my statement, figured it out on my own. Actually, I figured it out thanks to everybody here. So.
Okay. Got it there.
No, but while I have you, I would really, really like to see how Gil prepared that where you showed the 2 morphs where it was like every single string was activated slowly but individually. You know which one I'm talking about?
I think it was called like the Invader or something.
The missile?
Yeah,
it was Missile. That was it.
All right. So let me delete this. And I played when Morph came out. I was kind of getting bored actually with XLights, I have to say. But when the Morph came out, it gave me like new life. So Morph. This is. I'll tell you where my mind is going. Here's where I've gotten clobbered myself once. You can see my Megatree has, say, 20 layers on it. I've accidentally scrolled down into like this realm and put an effect down and wonder why it's not playing right. Because I have, I wasn't at the top layer, and that's what I was thinking. So let me just come into some clean space of this sequence here. So if I hit M for Morph, and let's look at the settings on this, and we'll just do a full sweep up. I changed my my model size in the middle of this, so that's why it's freaking out. So let me just re-render. You shouldn't change your model geometry in the middle of a sequence.
Yeah, probably not a good idea. I have 2 spinners. One's 96 pixels and the other is 64. And I have to be careful how I render effects on them, because I can't just copy and paste from one to the other.
So let's go on my blending mode, normal. I don't have any transitions. That's not right. So let me just do this. Let's just do a new, discard all these changes. And I'll just do the add a couple timing marks here. Mega tree. Wow. So let's go see the settings on this. So I'll show you how I do my mega tree, my morphs. The easiest thing with morphs is to use these quick sets. So full sweep up. There's a stagger. I set my stagger at 0. That's what I was looking for. That was all me. So as the morph goes up, it's using the colors in the color palette chosen here. That's what I was expecting to see. He said, how did you do that, Missile Defender? So I know that this tree is 24 legs. So if I come in here and say, I want you to skip 2, and update, it should be skipping. Repeat it. Let me just see.
See, that's where I have trouble understanding exactly what are all these skips, stagger, and repeat for.
I'll show you.
First, you need to make it a single sweep up.
There we go.
Single sweep.
That's just a single line. So let me set this to 0, the stagger to 0. I don't know why we're showing more than 1 pixel. Because we're trying to repeat count 2. That's why. So there it is. A single sweep up. It's going to start on the left side of the model. Now I want it, let's say I want it to repeat that. But you said, how'd you do every other one? Well, there you go. And let's repeat this 12 times. We'll get it across my 24 strands of the model. And the stagger is the time they start. Positive or negative starts from the left or the right.
Okay, now it's starting to make sense.
The only thing that I found with this, and Gil can explain why, is if you set a negative value, I found the negative doesn't always start right at the beginning of the timing mark. And it's something to do with the math on there, but I haven't paid attention to that in the past several months. So it was just one of those going to the left, the other one going to the right, and they're just kind of on each other there.
Great, I've been able to recreate it. Thank you.
Anything you'd like to add, Gil?
Not really. I'm just trying to help out whenever I think you need a little help.
I'm doing this all on my laptop, so I don't have the chat window open. I don't know who's here.
We still have about 32 people here.
No small group tonight.
No, a small group is about 10 to 15 people.
Yeah, this is a pretty sizable turnout.
I should have grabbed the latest version and had Gil show us some of his latest creations. I don't know. In the beginning, Gil, there was a talk about someone was saying, you know, we'd really appreciate Gil to come and show us these effects he's created and how they work. And I know for myself that I've seen some of Gil's effects, and because he wrote them, he knows intimately how they work and to get the best out of them. I would like that too.
Speaking of that, Mr. Gill, would you come one evening and do an advanced class for us?
Yeah, sure, I could do that sometime.
It would surely be appreciated. I know that a lot of, we had almost 40 people here to see the layering, and I'm sure that if you were to show up, we might just fill up the buffer. Is Wednesday night an okay night with you?
It depends on the week. Some weeks I have to be at church to play drums for praise team practice.
You just let us know where it works better.
Yeah, just give us a date and we'll post it out there and to attract attention.
So this is the sequence I'll send out. It's just one of each of the blending modes done for you. A couple samples.
I'm sure the group that sat through this would certainly appreciate it.
You got it.
We would. Thank you.
Amen.
If there's anything else I could answer for you, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll hand over to Gil and see if he wants to show off anything new.
Or old.
I think he's in observation mode tonight.
Oh, I'm paying attention to several things.
I call it babysitting mode.
I'm trying to think of anything else I may have left out there. So the complex part, like I mentioned, is masking. Just remember, a mask is black in the shape of the effect you're using. And use it just to modify another effect. Here, just to drill it in. If we put a butterfly down and we wanted to get it in the shape of fire, we could set, let me think. One would be the mask. And if we want an opposite of that, so someone asked, could you just reverse them? In this case would be no, because butterfly takes up all pixels in the model, so we'd have to use the unmask. So one would be the unmask. That's what I was going for. So there's just countless of combinations you can come up with, and a lot of them I did on accident. I chose a wrong effect and thought, wow, that looks decent. Keep in mind, these are going to look good on your mega tree, and matrix shaped and sized models. Single strand window frames, these probably won't look that great on being you don't have that much pixel real estate to work with to see the effect doing that. They would look good if you used the color wash effect, maybe on something where an existing effect didn't let you scroll through the colors, like spirals has a fixed bandwidth of a solid color. But if you mix spirals with color wash, then the colors would kind of fade through. It just takes time, like I've done. Just set up a dummy effect, a dummy sequence, and just blend those effects together. I need to step away for a while because I've been drinking a big old glass of water.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate everything. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I'll be right back.
I hope everybody got something out of this tonight.
That was very informative. Really appreciated it.
It was very nice of him to step up to the mic and do it for us. I know a lot of people don't understand the layering, but it is, once you sit down and you look at it, 90% of it is just experimentation. But I think he may have gotten a lot of people off on the right foot to do the experimenting.
Well, the hardest part is having an effect you want to create in your brain and then trying to dissect it so you end up with the right pieces in the timeline.
Yeah, I have to agree because a lot of times, like, I had it stuck in my head. I've got to make this morph, and I want to have, you know, every other line going up and down, going up and coming back down. The only way I could create it was with like a single strand chase or bars going straight up or something, you know. And this makes it a whole lot easier for me to create the exact same effects. So, within a quarter or an eighth of the time that it used to take me.
Now that I stopped sharing my screen, I'm seeing all the things you guys were talking about. I see one thing I left out in all it was the morph. And someone asked, can you morph between effects? And yes, you can. And I don't have that sequence on this PC right now, but I could show you what I did. So let's say you have, I talked about having a spiral with, say, two colors, red and green. Let's see what that looks like. And copy that, paste it so it's identical. And then I did, say, white and purple. And the blending, hit morph. And for that time sequence, during that time, oops, first one should be red and green, second one should be only two colors, white and purple. There we go. So it's going to look like those colors change. They kind of morph into the other color rather than having this effect on the next timing mark. You have no control over where it's going to happen. It is just evenly spread across the duration of the effect. That's the same effect. What if we chose something else? We wanted spirals to transition into fire. Well, it does. It's kind of like a fade out or become. If you had something that was kind of similar, I did it once, I think, on an ending of a song where there was a key change, and I did where the spirals became thicker and thicker as it went. So I kept the same colors, and they just got thicker. And he thought, how'd you get the spirals to get thicker? And you just use the morph. Hopefully that answered you guys' questions on that.
For the spirals getting thicker, can't you use the curve on the thickness slider?
I'm still about 6 months behind on the new features. Yes.
Yeah, the value curve, and also one of the things that the gradient, the being able to right click on any of the color blending mode, you can have the color change from one color to the next just using one color from the palette. So it's doing the exact same thing with one effect versus having to use two effects to do it with.
I noticed that Steve was still on dot 46, and with dot 49, you also have those color library that you can build.
Yeah, I presume those are stored in RGBFX as well, but I haven't dug into it.
One thing to remember is that when you save an effect, those colors that were chosen that on the palette are saved for each one. So if I come across here, oops, let me share my screen. And go to XLights. The color palettes, well, maybe not for this demo, but they would change along with, even if you just had red chosen and you change the palette like this, when you save that effect, the entire palette saved as well, regardless of what's selected. So some people just maybe in the beginning of your sequence, or you have a layer just to park your colors. In version 3, we had a color palette. In 4, it seems like it's coming back now. So there's kind of ways to get around it.
Yeah, they just added a save and load right there where the update is.
Perfect.
Yep. So you can save them once and then apply those to multiple effects by simply applying that new color palette to it.
Oh, nice.
And
yeah,
it even pops up with the colors so you can see what it is.
Yep. It's very visual, very, very well done. Thank you, Gil.
Was that you, Gil?
I didn't do that one.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, I was
that
going to do it, but Keith got to it before I did.
I know somebody mentioned it when I was talking about the candle flame flicker effect, and you were in there so often I assumed it was you.
Oh, no, Keith jumped in to comment on that thread.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my only thing is someone should complain that you can't name the palette.
Well, as long as it's visual and you can see it, who cares?
I was just going to go there.
You know, you can see its Halloween colors, or you can see its Christmas colors, or whatever.
Plus, it doesn't maintain which ones you have active.
Maybe that would only come from version 3. In 3, you can name the color palette. So you had like your pastels, your Christmas, your Halloween. Whoop-de-doo. I haven't seen the new one, but if it's visual, that does the same thing.
What's the limit to the color palette? How many can we have?
Don't know.
I bet you it's like layers. It's probably unlimited.
Yeah, it might just be like, limited by a 32-bit number.
That's good enough for me.
When you run out of memory and crash.
Palette.
Trying to say something.
So in 3, since I brought my RGB effects file over from 3 to 4, in there is a XML area that does have the color palettes, even though 4 ignores it. I don't know if the new version's using that. Palettes. See, I had a palette in here called RGB purple and pink. And that's just carryover from XLights 3. Like I said, 4 is backwards compatible, and it doesn't crash by having that in there. It just ignored at this time.
Well, I just looked into my documents folder. After saving 2 palettes, there is now a palettes folder underneath your folder there, and in there It's named PAL001.xPalette and PAL2xPalette, so it actually saves them to discrete file names. So that'll make transporting it either to others or to other project folders very easy.
That's nice for sharing with someone.
Yep. Let's see here. Get back. I'll throw mine up real quick. See, here's the new selector here. And it's got a nice visual representation of the palette. So it's very easy to swap them out.
Yeah, why do you need a name? They just clutter things up.
Right. Yeah, that's why I say you have a nice representation here of the colors. So
Yeah, I mean the name would be useless.
Yeah, I agree.
I want a name. You just wait until you get 15 of them in there, and there's just subtle differences between a couple shades.
Yeah. You see it here. Here's my testing folder, and it created a palette, and then an X palette underneath that, and then there's what's in the file. So it's very simple. You could actually, do text editing on this very easily. So it's a nice ad. I like it. Thank you.
So do you want me to show any of the new curve stuff?
Oh, yes, please.
I like that icon.
So I haven't done this. Like, can it share my screen that's on the left, even though I'm looking at Zoom on the right?
Yes, it can, I believe.
Just
Just choose the application window. That's the best way to do it.
It seems to honor Windows that way too.
Yeah.
So do I not get to see anything but my own screen when I'm sharing?
That's correct.
So you see my one little shockwave effect here?
Yep.
Yep.
So this was what you would have before this revision was just a normal shockwave would be kind of like an expanding circle that you could tune the width and you could tune the radius. Now that every one of these parameters has a curve, so you can real simply click on, say, the X position, and let's just say you tell it to do a ramp or ramp up, down. So now it's going to move across and back in the X position. So then you could go to the Y and tell it to do something like a sawtooth and maybe set cycles a little bit higher. And so then it's going to kind of bounce. So you can tune that to do almost anything you want, because you could come back in. You could come back into this curve, and one trick if you want to do a custom curve is a lot of times you can come in and, like, say, set it on a ramp and then switch to custom. And when you come in here, you can click your points and then kind of create whatever shape you want it to do. So you could really make this thing go across the screen to any position you wanted. So it's kind of just following that curve I created. And then what I did in that GIF I posted on Facebook is I just clicked this persistent checkbox, and you get a cool little, kind of like a trail effect.
Oh, that's how you got that.
Yeah, I hadn't used that persistent checkbox in a long time. I just got the idea once I started moving things around.
Is each one of those the frame? Like if you
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, that is every frame. So if you played this, you'd see, it stops right there. So that's just one iteration.
It would be cool if that would also fade as a tail behind it.
I just gave you layers. Mix that with the morph, and the morph does that.
So let's see.
Yes, how would you do that?
I'd have to think about that one. You're saying you want the back end of it to fade along with it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
similar to the old school mouse trails. Remember the old mouse cursor trails that you could use on laptops when you couldn't find your cursor all the time?
Yeah.
You know how it would fade at a little ways behind it?
Also the Star Trek effect.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I can think of a quick way to do that. I'd almost have to probably put a second effect behind it that was blanking it out with a delay. But that probably wouldn't look that great. So here I'll start with just a simple morph. Let's just say you weren't there with a full one, you can always go to this quick set option, say full sweep up, and that gives you a morph that goes up your entire display element. So, and if you see my house, I've got a lot of overlapping channels. This is just a layout that I have that has kind of like one of every type of model on it that I used to play around with. Mainly I was testing all these icons I was drawing. I have one of everything. So there's no logic to the way these channels are laid out, so you'll see a lot of overlap. But anyways, back to this morph. So let's say the top corners are going to be on your end tab, so you could click on the X corner, tell it to do a ramp, and so that's going to make that top corner move over. It's kind of looking strange. I expected it to. Oh, I had persistent check. That's why. So that's what I expected. So the X position is moving from left to right throughout the effect for that one. So if you went down to the other X corner and then tell it to do a ramp, but then swap the values, that'll make the other corner move the opposite direction, so they're kind of twisting. Same thing if you went back to like one of the bottom corners, tell it to do a ramp, and I'll invert that ramp. Let's see, and then do a normal ramp. So those are kind of doing that. So then let's go back to, say, one of these y-axes on the end, tell it to do like a parabola. So then you start getting some weird twisting going on. So it's pretty much just playing around with these curves and thinking up something strange. And for that thing I posted on Facebook, I went over here to Roto Zoom and just told it to do like a clockwise revolution. Then you get it spinning on the screen as it's doing its twist. So it ends up looking really crazy. Wonder if we bored that some. Probably takes too long to calculate. Anyways, I'll go to the third one I added those curves to was the fan effect. So let me put it down to just a few colors. Is that thing rotating? It's doing something weird. Oh, I know, I still got the blur. Okay, so let me slow that thing down so it's moving a little slower. The thing I did that you saw, like I made one that looked like this by making the first radius. You can actually make it look like it's more like a ring spinning if you make the second radius smaller than the first one, so you can control the size of that band. And then I did the same thing where I came in and just did some ramping to the. And if you had a couple layers, you could put all these things together. Let's see. Now we can highlight them all. Select one and say align all the times. That didn't work. Why did that not work? I'll have to look at that later. Anyways, that's how I created that GIF that you see. It's not the exact thing I did on there. I think on the one I showed online, I had one more fan in there that was just like red and white. That's doing something weird. And then I think that one was just a normal fan shape like this. And then I just did a ramp on both X and Y. I think one of the other effects is kind of masking it. I must have a mask set somewhere. Hey, there it goes. Probably easier to see if that guy was on top. So I don't know. I don't know if that's doing any kind of thing that someone would want to use in their show or not, but you know, it kind of leaves the options open to do a whole lot of crazy things. And if you take just this one effect right here, you could start doing a lot of other things where you like speed up the revolutions. I'm not going to go that fast, but it'll like start speeding up as it spins across. Anyways, I don't know. I can't think of anything else. Anybody got any ideas of something they'd want to see?
I do have a question about one of the waveforms, or one of the curves. I've noticed that if you click cancel, it wipes it out. Is that by default, or is it supposed to do that, or is that a bug?
You mean if you click cancel like that?
Yeah, like go into one and go into custom and modify it and save it. And then OK out. Now come back in. Now click cancel. Gone.
Well, it's still there if you come back in and activate it. The whole way that the curve works is kind of like you click on it, deactivates it, then you click it again to activate it. So when you hit cancel, it's as if you deactivated it, and you click it again to activate it.
Okay.
So I think that was just the best way Keith came up with for you to be able to switch between whether it was the slider or the curve controlling your value.
Right on. I just didn't know if it was supposed to be doing that or if it was a bug.
I mean, ideally, it'd be nice if there was some way to just click this and get right to the dialogue again. But then it's like, well, then what would you do when you wanted to deactivate the curve?
Yeah.
So,
but you had it up. The confusing part was when you had it in the window, you had a custom curve, but you click canceled and it turned it off. I expected it to wipe out what I had changed and return to what I had before, and it didn't.
Well, I think what cancel's doing is not using a curve at all. It still saves what the curve state was. It's like right now there's a curve active because this is grayed out. When I click on that button, now the curve's not active, and you can move the slider. So when I click the curve again, if I hit OK, then now the curve's going to be active. If I hit cancel, it goes back to the slider being active. But the curve still has, you know, whatever you left in it.
Right. Okay. So it's by design.
Well, I guess not unless you save. So if I go in here and I mess around and hit cancel and then come back in, it doesn't save my change. So I guess that's one difference.
Yep. But yeah, that's what I expected it to do. When I clicked cancel, I thought it would revert back to what I had before, not turn it off. Which it does, but it turns it off. I get back to it by turning it back on in your dialog back there. But
yeah, and
just a matter of figuring out how it works.
That's just the way, you know, kind of the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that spiral that you have going there, that would be really cool if you had it falling down on a mega tree with a smaller and a whole bunch of them as a snowfall. That'd be a pretty cool effect.
Well, I came in here thinking everybody's going to be gone, but wow.
Yeah, you could do some pretty crazy stuff with this. You know, if you add a whole bunch of these on top of something and have them all you know, interweaving different ways, because you could start just taking that same guy and copying it, changing what color he is, and then go in there and make each one do something different.
You think there would be a possibility of having a curve that's random?
Shouldn't be that hard to do.
You know, because you have the various parabola type and the fade in, fade outs. It would be nice to have a random, and every time you use it, it creates a completely different wave.
Yeah, you probably would want something where, like, maybe you hit the button to re-randomize it, because some people would want, like, oh, I hit random and I liked what I had.
Right.
You might want it to stay that way.
Yeah, so some method of randomizing a curve, i.e. when we were talking about the candle flickering.
Yep, that's definitely possible.
And how many points do you have to work with across there? Because it seemed limited.
Let's see. Let me open it up. I usually, if I need more, yeah, I can't tell if it actually is something like maybe 100. I'd have to dig into the code and see if there's like an array size there. There's definitely, well, let me change this to custom. There's definitely like.
Yeah, so you won't let you scoot it over any closer. That's what I was running into when I was trying to create that random wave like you were showing on YouTube. And thank you for that video, by the way. That helped a lot.
Yeah, so I guess you can't get these any closer than that. So yeah, maybe it's only I'd have to look into that to see whether that's changeable or not, or whether it's just a fixed number of slots for the curve. I hadn't really looked into that.
Well, that one's 20 at least.
As you can see with that change I did, how it does that green one now does a weird snap at the start.
It's like spinning ninja stars.
All right, any other ideas? What else could I show? Let's just see. One thing with this morph, like Steve was showing, you could come in here and put more than one copy on here. It would look kind of crazy.
Were you on the call when they were trying to move the little yellow box around?
This box?
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I know, you can only grab the corners, or you can double click to reset it. I don't think there's any other way right now to move it. I'd actually like to be able to just grab and draw right in here. You know, like just go click and then drag and let go. But that'll have to be an enhancement.
Yeah, one of the reasons I asked about moving that square is because I ran into some issues when I was working on that Halloween costume for the granddaughter, is trying to get the text centered. So I had to keep moving the corners instead of just grabbing the box and scooting it over.
What would be good is have those numbers where you could actually manually change the numbers.
That too.
Hey, Gil, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Gil, it's Keith. How you doing?
Hey, good.
I can answer some of those questions that were being posed. So the number of points in the value curve is limited to 40. So you can't have any more than 40 points across the time interval.
Okay.
Okay, and yeah, you're right about all of the enabling and disabling the buttons. I didn't want to add more than one button in real estate, yet I wanted it to control all sorts of things. And the best I could come up with is that kind of tri-state type behavior.
Yeah, it was just the confusing part when you click cancel that it resets it back to the off state instead of returning you back to what you had.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual button on the palette down there made perfect sense.
Yeah.
So now you got curves on these guys, so you could actually do something where it actually changes these parameters on the fly also.
Oh, you even did repeat count. Oh, very cool.
Sometimes I have to play around to get something that's not stupid looking.
That's where you want to save it as a preset once you find one that you like.
And then stagger. Stagger gets kind of crazy.
I bet you parabola on the stagger would be kind of cool.
Yeah, see, that just like flies off the screen. Oh well, what else can I think about? Let's see.
Did you show them the random color curve, Gil?
No, I don't think I've tried that. How do you do?
So you right click on it and bring up a color curve, set a couple of color points. I don't know, pick a red and a yellow and move it to either end.
Yeah, I haven't messed with this a whole lot, so I'm not real.
So double click on the ad, change the color. You just pick a couple of, and pick another one, make it yellow, something, yeah. And if you change the type there, I can't read the screen because it's on my phone, but you change that to random, what it will do is it will randomly set the colors between those colors. So you get a flickering type effect.
Okay, let me change this so we can see it.
Oh yeah, it looks good.
That would handle that. The people that want to do the candle flicker.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that looks nice.
That was my thought.
Where was that at now?
So you right click on a color.
Gotcha.
It's where you do the gradients. So you could switch between just a normal gradient or random.
Does it randomize it differently every time you do it?
It does. What it does is it chooses the two color stops, and it chooses a whole bunch of random colors between those color stops. If you happen to choose black and white, it will only ever choose grayscale. So, and then you can use that as a mask if you want to create random brightness over a period of time.
Cool.
Wow, and it looks like it saved that color to the color palette as well.
Yes,
That's right.
and then
And
you
if you
can
click
save it.
you click save icon, yep, and it'll appear there.
Yeah, I've been playing with that for about a half an hour now. Hey, how do you get rid of one of those points? Like on mine, I happen to have like 6 color points. How do I get rid of some of those points?
Oh, if you just click on it so that the color point, so the color stop looks yellow, Gil, yeah, if you click on it so you've got the one selected, like the middle one, click on the middle one, Gil. So it goes yellow, just press the delete key and it goes away.
Sweet, thank you very much.
How about if you
It
save
also,
a palette that was a duplicate? You want to get rid of one of those palettes.
so it won't save a duplicate. If your palette is a duplicate with one you've already saved, it won't actually let you save it.
What if you had one you wanted to get rid of?
Okay, that's a bit of a pain. They all sit inside a folder in your show directory called palettes, but they don't give them useful names. It gives them just palette 0, palette 1, palette 2, and so forth. I don't give you an easy way to delete them. You can delete them, but it's hard to tell which one you want to delete. I did want to actually put a file name and have a tooltip so that as you were going down the drop down and you were highlighting each one, it would tell you the name of the file that was behind it, but the code wouldn't compile and I couldn't get it to work, and I had better things to work on.
Well, there's your answer, Gil.
Yep. I've been playing around just trying to do something weird with this.
Would a right click and delete in that drop down be an option?
No, because it's effectively it's just a combo box control. You can't actually right click and do an action on a drop down. I'm somewhat limited by the capabilities of the actual underlying WX widget. So I've implemented it as a custom. Yeah, it's a widget. It's a custom draw down there. That's how I get all the colors.
What if
can't add events?
What if when you load a palette, if it actually exists inside the file system, then you put a delete button next to the save button, and then you just click that, and then it will delete it from the files?
Okay, yeah, that would be possible.
Yeah, you just pop it up if it exists. If it doesn't exist and you've created a new palette, you know, that you haven't saved yet, then the button will be gone. It will disappear.
Yeah, I could do that.
And how about instead of displaying just load, display the palette that you just loaded, and that would indicate which one you want to delete.
Yeah, well, that's more complicated. That's more complicated because I actually, behind the scenes, although you see the nice drawn colours, what's actually behind the scenes is the colour string which defines those colours. So that's actually not possible. But I could add the delete button. That's possible.
I am glad you saved them to discrete files, so that makes sharing them a lot easier.
Yeah.
Before you guys leave out of here, thanks to all you guys, to the programmers for dropping in here. It's been very, very informative.
Amen to that.
Yeah, that's true. Amen to that. Thank you, Gil and Mr. Steve and everybody that has come this evening. We sure do appreciate you taking the time to talk to the group.
No problem.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Well, I don't know of anything else I can think of to show right offhand. It's just so many things you can do. It's like limitless, you know. Almost just have to have an idea and then try to think of how to do it.
Gil, did you show them the description attribute on the model?
Let's take a look. I hadn't actually looked at that either.
I saw that this morning. I was so excited to see this. I could not believe it. I finally can define what something gets plugged into in the model.
Just please do not type in an ampersand or an angle bracket.
I don't
need to
use
write
that
some
crap.
code to stop that.
Just a space, or that's about it. A space, or maybe an underscore, and that's it.
Right. So if you do that, Gil, and then if you export your models, it'll actually appear in your exported models list, which you can then open up in Excel.
That's the CVS export.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I usually tell people try not to use any characters that are above your number keys. Maybe the let's see. I mean, the ones I usually use is maybe dash and underscore. I don't know. I try not to use most of the special characters just because I know you never know when there's going to be some thing that uses it as an escape code.
Yeah, I just forgot to implement the safe stuff to make sure that it didn't cause problems in the XML file.
Gil was having quite a discussion with somebody along those lines just a few days ago.
Yeah, I use some characters at the beginning of the things that I name that help me visualize what it is. Like if I name a specific node or pixel, I start it with a period. And groups, all my groups start with plus symbols, and all the submodels all are ats. So when I'm looking at my tree in my sequencer, I know exactly what type of thing I'm dealing with.
Yeah, some of those might be a problem. I'm trying to think. Some of our start channel syntax uses some of those characters.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, and that's actually not as bad as you think, Gil, because as long as you don't use the angle bracket, which Dan uses to indicate that what's going to follow it is a model name, you're okay. So even though we do use the @ symbol and the hash symbol for special meanings, you're always going to have an angle bracket in front of it, so it doesn't matter. And the model name now won't let you do things like start a model name with an angle bracket. It'll reject the name.
Yeah, so you're talking about what we're seeing like right here.
Yeah.
So if we were in here, and I think it's when you tell it to start at another model, you get the
the angle bracket.
Well, see, there's no angle bracket on that one. That was the one I was worried about.
Yeah, look right above it at your DMX. That has one, I think.
Yeah, I'm talking about that one that just changed.
Oh, so what's that? Is that I can't see it.
Ampersand. I mean, no, that's an @ symbol. What do you call it?
Yeah,
yeah, doesn't that mean the same location as? I think that's what that means.
It's that one I got by picking start at, so it's like the start of the model instead of the end of the model.
Yeah, so that would be problematic if you were then starting your model names with the @ symbol. That would cause your start channel to be calculated incorrectly.
Well, I'm using it for the submodels.
I know behind the scenes submodels are actually stored as models, so I don't know whether that would cause a problem or not.
It hasn't so far, so.
Yeah.
When it does, I guess I'll fix it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen a problem with your start channels, then maybe you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, like dashes for strands and dots for nodes, and ats for the submodels and pluses for groups.
So there's a bunch of questions that are coming through on chat around structuring your folders. There's a couple of things I would recommend. One is that do not put the year inside your show folder, the final folder where you start to store your RGB effects file. You want to keep that name as generic as possible, because as long as that name matches when you move it between PC and PC, when you move it from year to year into a new set of subdirectories, etc., XLights will automatically fix up all of the references to any files that happen to sit underneath your show folder. If you call it 2015 Christmas and then you call it 2016 Christmas and you bring your old sequences across, all of the references to audio files, image files, movie files that happen to sit under your show folder will either continue to point back to your 2015 folder, or if you then go and delete your 2015 folder, all of those things will break. So I always recommend to people that you give that folder a nice generic. So you might create a folder called 2015 Christmas, and you keep calling it Christmas every year, and the next year you move it to 2016 Christmas. That's good. That's no problem there. If, however, you call it, 2015, and that's where you put your show folder, then when you move to the next year, everything will potentially break if the older folder doesn't exist. The other thing I always recommend is keep all of your assets inside your show folder. Sure, you'll save a little bit of disk space if you keep a separate media folder that's outside your show folder, but seriously, the dramas that it will cause you, just not worth the trouble.
So Keith, can I ask you a question along those lines?
Yeah.
Okay, I have under my documents, I have an XLights folder.
Yep.
And then underneath that, I have 2016. And then underneath that, I have Christmas 2016, Halloween 2016 test. Is that okay? When I go to next year, I'll have a 2017.
So what will happen is that base folder will then be Christmas 2017. And so when you bring all your sequences across and copy them into that new folder, all inside your XML files are going to be looking back at the 2016 folder. So if you were to delete that 2016 folder, nothing would work anymore. If you were to change some of the image files in your 2016 folder, those changes wouldn't be picked up because all of your sequences are still looking back to the 2015 folder. You're better off calling that directory just Christmas.
So XLights / 2016 / Christmas.
That's right.
So kind of like I've got mine here. I haven't really worked on that yet, but that's kind of how I have mine. I have 2015. I've got Christmas, Halloween.
Yeah, that's a good structure.
Okay.
And I got 2016 where I basically just copy all those same folders.
Right. So the reason that I had put the year on the Christmas folder inside the year, so when I copy it to 2017, I have a copy of 2016 there beside it. So I'm not writing into the same folder again. When I start copying stuff. So I'll fix that. Thank you, Keith.
Just for a matter of clarification, because I'm looking at one of my XML files that has a video in it, and it's got the absolute path rather than relative. Keith, what's your sense if it stores relative paths, but if it's
it doesn't. It doesn't do that. What it does is it stores the absolute path, but when we load the sequence, I've gone through all the places that we look for files, and I go and check to see if the file's there. If the file isn't there, so if the file's still there, it will still use the old file. If the file's not there, what it does is it says, okay, well, let's assume that the show directory is the right folder and that everything's relative to that, and it goes and looks for it relative to the show folder.
I see. Okay. Well, that makes sense then.
So yeah, that's what it does, because it was just so hard to go through and update every folder location, because I wasn't actually so worried about the situation where you go from year to year. But I know, for instance, all of my sequences are actually stored on GitHub, and I actually just replicate them onto my desktop computer, my laptop computer, and my show computer. And in every computer, they're stored in a slightly different location. And as I jump from computer to computer, I just want it to work, and it does.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, thank you for that.
So Keith, let me ask, so even the way I have them named in mine, it sounds like if
it would still look in the old folder.
It would still, like if I had pictures under here, it's still going to be finding them there. So
yeah. That's right. So you would be better off saying _old or something and forcing it not to find it. Yeah.
I have started moving all my audio to like one spot because I got tired of like trying to start a new sequence and I couldn't figure out where some MP3 was. It's like, wait, what year did I do that last?
Yeah, that's kind of what similar to what I have, Gil. I created a media folder underneath there, and then have an MP3 and an image and video underneath that. But it's not underneath the year, so I can share it from sequence to sequence.
That's right. As long as it's always in the same place, it'll keep finding it. It's only when the folder name changes and all of a sudden it all breaks, and you run your check sequence and you get all these errors saying, I can't find this image file, I can't find that movie file, and so forth.
Oh, so putting it in a common media folder is better than putting it in the year folder.
It's okay as long as it's always in the same location. If you're like me and you move it from PC to PC and it's in a different location on every PC, that's not good.
Well, this is actually a shared folder to a NAS, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as long as it has the same drive mapping on every machine you use it on.
It does.
You always call it Z drive, you're good.
Yep.
The only problem with that, Wolfie, is that if, let's say 3 years later you decide to change the image just slightly, but it's still the same name for whatever reason, then obviously that image or that song or that video or whatever it is now going to be incorrectly referenced in a previous file. I mean, you'll find it, but it's not going to be the one that you actually did that sequence with. If that makes sense.
It does, but I never do that. Anytime I change a song or an image or whatever, I always append the year, month, and day to the end of the file name.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So then I can go back to every version that I needed.
Yeah, that's smart.
So, yeah, I'm a backup freak.
I was hoping you guys would keep talking. I had an idea I was trying to figure out.
So has there been anything new added to the product since the January release?
I don't know, you've been sleeping the last 2 hours?
Oh, there's one in every crowd.
Maybe you can answer this one. I added a single line that was vertical to my model list, and I added that line to the sequence, and I was testing. And when I clicked on Preview Model, it shows the model horizontal versus vertical. And
it will in the model preview, but not in your actual house preview.
Why?
Because that's the way the model actually is. It's just in the house we've rotated it.
Gotcha.
All right. There's a couple other things I've added. I added ArtNet support this time around. I'd love people to try it out. I actually can't physically test it. I've done packet analysis to see if it looks okay, and it does. There was one guy who did try a little bit out, and he said it looked okay, but it would be good to know. I've also added the not yet standard, but the new E131 sync. And so when that stuff starts to appear in controllers, you'll be able to actually tell all of your controllers to ensure that when you send a set of packets, at the moment what happens is every controller reacts as each packet arrives. And if you're sending hundreds of packets, that can actually be a reasonable amount of time. And potentially noticeable. With the E131 sync, what it does is every controller will receive its packet and sit on that packet until it receives a sync packet, and then every controller will change instantaneously. And so it should, in theory, generate a slightly snappier display.
Cool.
I know that they mentioned earlier that it's not there, but I'm hoping
What's not there?
Since I have at least 2 of the developers here, can we get key mappings for pause and stop at the top?
You do. It's a spacebar.
That only toggles play, doesn't do pause.
Oh, okay.
So when you press it the second time, it resets back to the beginning of the playtime instead of staying where the cursor was.
Yeah, I think I'll look.
Yeah, I'll let you answer that.
I tried to model everything after Audacity, so after someone asked for that, I went and played around and searched online in Audacity. I think they let you use the P key to pause, so maybe we could do that.
I mean, any key doesn't matter. I mean, it's just a key.
Or
Something.
maybe just maybe just a switch, the same way you did with the copy paste, whether you do the full cell or the time, that you can specify whether you want the space bar to stop and go back to the where it started, or pause.
Yeah, see, I use it a lot. When I've been doing the lyric tracks, I'll start the song at half or 3/4 time, and then I'll start marking the start and end of the phrases, and it's nice to be able to pause it, adjust where you click T, for the start, and then continue on with another unpause instead of having to restart again.
I have a different strategy. What I do is I highlight the audio track and I put it on loop play, and then I actually I let the thing play around and around and around and adjust all my timing marks while it loops. And I find that's a much better way than stopping the audio.
Oh, well, so what I was doing, I'd do the whole song, just grossly marking them out, and then do what you're talking about to really fine tune the beginning and ends.
So I spent a lot of time trying to make my timeline work just like Audacity does. So if you see me highlight a range in Audacity and hit the space bar and then hit the space bar again, that's the way they react, and that's kind of the way I have mine, except it looks like they leave that line up there. But I spent a whole lot of time trying to think of every permutation of how you could do things in here. Like, you can even be playing like in here, and then you can have that looping, and then I believe you can set like a start location somewhere else while that's still looping, and see how it starts. It jumps over to that new. So there's a whole lot of neat little tricks that you can do.
Yep, those I've found, and those are very handy.
Did you show them shift and double clicking on effect skill and highlighting the waveform?
Yeah, so I know someone asked for this, and Keith implemented it where it was working on just effects, and then I had the idea of, well, right now, if you have a timing, let me see, I gotta highlight it. If you double click a timing, normally you get just a type of word in there. So double clicking a timing wasn't doing anything. So to make it work for both, I suggest you change it just to where you hold shift down and then double click. So whatever you double click is going to highlight that area up there. So then you get a nice area that's going to match whatever you're highlighting. So it's a shift double click on whatever effect you're on, highlights the range above it. Let's see why. I guess I got to hit stop before I can hit loop. Yeah, I was wondering why I didn't see the loop active.
Yeah, that's the model play versus the waveform play.
So let's see if I can. I was wondering if that would break down why it was playing, but I guess it pauses it.
Well, it does because it's doing the load, but yes, it does also stop it, I think.
Yeah, I've been meaning to.
Yeah, it's loading the dictionary, I think.
I've been meaning to see if we could launch a background thread that was loading those dictionaries while, kind of like in the background when you didn't know it was happening. And then by the time you need them, they're probably there. It was just a trade-off of, a lot of people aren't going to need them. But yeah, it picked back up and it started looping because I didn't restart it. So I think like Keith is saying, you could come in here and be doing your edits while this thing is looping if you wanted. And you can even be breaking down your phrases and words, and that thing's still going to keep on looping. So it's actually one thing that's kind of cool. I don't know if any of the other sequencers where you can be sitting here playing, and I demonstrated this at we had like an Arizona Mini several months ago, and I didn't even really know that you could do this. I kind of stumbled on it in the middle of a demo I was doing, and I had some real lights in the room, and I started actually just dropping effects down and editing the effects while this is playing, and it was taking effect real time up on the lights. So I thought that was pretty cool. I said, yeah, you could just sit here running a loop and have your mega tree in your yard and be dropping effects on it while it's sitting here playing them in a loop.
Yeah, I use that a lot when I'm working on the actual word placements itself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and I saw a comment, Wolfie, where you said you didn't know how to copy that whole section. Just uncheck.
Yeah, I found that out.
Draw that.
But by the way, you have to uncheck all of them.
Yeah, there's a bug, I think, there, Gil, in that there are certain situations in which multiple timing tracks can be selected.
Well,
and I thought we were only meant to only have one.
That's only if you have a different view up and then you have another timing track. You can select both of those timing tracks. And some people actually liked the feature, so we left it that way.
Well, see, I actually use multiple timing tracks like this. I'll use one for like a bass beat, one for a hat beat, one for a phrase marker, and I can have all those timings visible at once. But,
yeah, see, if you're in a different view, like I'm in a different view than the master view, you can turn them all on. That was actually not intentional. That was a side effect that happened that we didn't plan, and then some people liked it, so we left it that way.
Yeah, don't break it, please.
So if you go back to master view, though, I think you have to have just one or the other selected. You can't do both.
Right, but on that sub view, go back to your other view that you had. Now, select that one and unselect your new timing. You cannot copy it. So you can't select it. You have to have them all unselected.
That's right.
You can't.
That's right.
Yeah, you have to unselect the red one as well.
Right, because the selection mode right now is still a grid selection mode.
Mm-hmm.
See how, as I'm going across, it's reacting to the timings. So to get to the box selection, you have to not have any timing tracks.
Right. That's what I found out after your comment on the Aussie forums. And that'll save me a lot of time. Because I was having to shift click each one of those. Oh my God.
Yeah, I heard you saying that, and it's like I know how easy it is to misclick a control shift or something.
Yeah, you miss and you got to start all over again.
There's an interesting comment in the Zoom chat.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't see the chat. So.
It says, I have hit a timing mark a couple of times, and it automatically dropped the current effect as the name of the timing mark. Is this intended, and how do you do it on purpose?
I'd like to see that.
I would say not intentional.
Yeah, I've never seen that happen either.
You're saying that, like, you drag this down and it drops it and has Galaxy in this field?
Miss Sargent is Julie Sargent is the one that made the comment. The Zoom chat is down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's not on my screen. I'm not sure.
You got multiple screens?
Yeah, let's see. It must be on the other screen here. Let's see. Participants.
It's in the menu. It's in the ellipsis menu. You go into that.
I got it now.
Hey Gil, do we have a shift modifier now on the selection? Maybe you just put shift to force it into non-grid mode if you have one of the timings selected, just to have another option where you don't have to go click everything off or click one off. I mean, right now when there's none selected, you don't that's non-grid because you don't know which grid to use. But maybe there's maybe a shift key whenever there is one selected, just to force it into non-grid. That way you don't have to turn anything off. You could just hold the shift key.
That selection code is such a nightmare. I hate to have to touch it again.
Gil breaks it every time.
It's like some of the most complex code that's probably in existence.
I mean, it works. Now I know how to get to it. I didn't realize I had to turn every track off. Once I figured that out, I'm
But
golden,
I
man.
think it would just be in the beginning, right? That whenever you first detect the click event, that you just look to see if the shift key is down, and it seems like it would just be in one spot of the code. The rest would just pertain, maybe not.
I love that observation.
Or even a right button click and drag.
Obviously, Dave has never written spaghetti code.
There's a lot of people that have had their hands in the code.
Well, the reason we've got like the different modes, of whether you've got timings active or not active, and then whether there's rows hidden or expanded, and yeah, that's why for a while there things didn't even work unless they were visible on the screen, because all of our code goes towards the visible rows, and then I did all my testing on screen, and then someone else goes and has 100 rows and says, "Hey, copy and paste doesn't work. If you go off screen." And I've spent so much time trying to fix all those bugs, and it seems like every time I fix one, I introduce a new one in somewhere other area, like the whole copy paste row thing.
It's funny, Gil. I actually rewrote all of the timing track code that does the insertion of the timing track when you press the T key and the like, because there were edge cases that weren't being handled correctly. Like you couldn't highlight the waveform in the gap between two timing intervals and put a timing interval in it, because it said, well, there was already one there, and things like that. And I ended up I lost myself in it. I ended up rewriting that piece to just make it work.
Is there a possibility of a clear row?
Clear row. Well, you mean delete all effects on a row?
Yep.
I know, we just come in and drag them all and hit
Right,
the
but you
delete
have
key.
to zoom all the way out to get the entire song to do that.
That's a control and a mouse wheel.
Yeah, well, that's just like holding down the control key. Like if I click here, hit the control key, I can scroll that
Yes,
thing
I
out.
thought it would be nice because you have a right-click copy paste, and it'd be nice to be able to clear it before you paste it.
So that gets back to a comment I made on GitHub today, that if there's so many suggestions that all involve another right-click menu option, we try to figure out which ones are the most important.
Yeah, I understand that totally, and I'll tell you what, I don't want to ever go back to the nightmare that is LOR that has 35 different options for right-click.
I was just going to say, what, you don't want a 30-item context menu?
No. You know what? A year ago, honest to God, I would have bitched, moaned, and cried because you didn't want to add one damn thing. You know what I wanted on the right-click menu was a cut.
Yep, that was what I was thinking. Cut, copy, paste, done.
But you know what?
The keyboard's for.
But exactly. I moved on. I got over it, and I appreciate simplicity. And that's what we've been talking about today. Like I really want to add. We're talking about adding layers, and that's what this whole seminar today was for. And how do you add? I have effects. Some people are making effects with 13, 15, 25 different layers. And to instantly go from one layer to 25 is no easy way. You have to sit there, right-click, insert, right-click, insert, right-click, insert. And I wanted to pull my eyeballs out of my eye sockets whenever I was doing 2 mega trees and 3 matrices.
All right, what was that, Chris?
But like I said, however you guys figure it out, if you're willing to do it, I'm happy. If not, it's not a make or break.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you can zoom out. Yes, you can highlight it. Yes, you can delete it. But like I said, right-click, clear, right-click, paste, done. Because a lot of times I'll sequence like one of my floods of a series of floods, and then I'll tinker on another flood to see what the effects look like, and then I got to go clear that row before I can duplicate it.
Yeah, I guess my view is if you've got something where you end up taking a really, really tedious action lots and lots and lots of times, all the time, that's something we've got to automate. And inserting layers is a classic example of that. Where it's something where you can just scroll out, highlight it, delete it, it's not a big deal. That's when you've got to start asking, is the trade-off worth it?
Gil, how the hell did you just do that?
He highlighted the cells
I
and
just highlighted a bunch
right
of
click.
shells.
Well, I know how to fill. How'd you get that parallelogram? How did you get it to slide off like that?
Hit Shift R, hold down the Alt key, and then
Drag.
grab this low effect edge.
That's holding Alt?
Yeah, the Alt key.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
sexy.
it's kind of
Yeah, that's-
designed so you could highlight like this and put like say a ramp up effect on it and hold down Alt and then give yourself a little chase.
Exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah,
Like, there's
welcome to
someone
the
on the forum right now that's trying to do that, except he doesn't realize that he's looking at data. Because I kept trying to tell him how to do it, and I didn't realize he had data. Like,
If you're looking at your nose and trying to put effects on your nose, then you're doing it wrong.
In fact, this looks strange. How come that data is not showing up in the right spot?
Well, actually, I do put stuff on a node based, but that's my pumpkins. Yeah, me and Gil been down that path.
So this looked it must not have re-rendered. That must be.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
I thought Dan did something that fixed that. Let me just hit render and see if. I haven't actually done much sequencing lately, so.
Is there a way to stop the render once you start it?
Oh, Gil, you know what it'll be, mate? You've got all your models mapped onto the same channels. That's what it is.
Well, I switched user directories. This is somebody else's.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure how he has these mapped. I just kind of liked this was well, if you look at this is all the user directories of people I've helped. So I've got tons of different show folders, and some of them I'll find favorites. Like I like this directory because he had a nice setup where I had plenty of models where I could scroll up and down, and that allowed me to do a lot of the testing where I was testing whether you could copy and paste. Like it used to be a problem if you tried to say copy this row and scroll down and paste it here. Because I got that working now. There's a few other features that I don't know if everyone knows been added. Let me close this and reopen just to blank it out. Probably be quickest.
Can you show how that align was supposed to work?
Yeah, that's actually what I had in mind. I was gonna. So if you, let's say you drop some effects. Let me just free drop them.
I saw a folder that said Gil Happy.
Couldn't be.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
Does not exist.
Obviously, it wasn't after I had talked to him.
It's a virus.
Oh no, there's a happy for the song Happy. So they have a happy folder.
I swear Gil gets unhappy every time I talk to him.
So let's say you highlight these three effects here. The align is always going to key off of whatever is the last selected effect. So what I normally like to do is block highlight a whole bunch of them, hold down the shift key, and then click in the middle of the one you want to be your reference effect. So now since I hit shift and click this top one, that's going to be the reference. So now I can go anywhere, right click and say align and say align start times, and that aligns all of those. Or I can say align end times, and that aligns all the ends. I can say align both times and it makes them equal length. Let me undo that. And let's see, I've got aligned center points and that aligns them all to the center. Now the other cool thing with this is let's say that I really wanted it to fit in between this timing mark here. I can like highlight all these, hold control, and click on this effect to last. Now if I did this right, I should be able to say align both times, and now all those effects now fit in between that timing mark.
Oh, that's sexy. Did you just add that?
That's sweet.
Yeah, that was added probably 2 releases ago, maybe 3.
Okay, because I was using 46 until I just downloaded 49.
So normally it moves the effects all relative to the reference effect. So the cool thing is if you make a timing mark the reference effect, then you can actually align the effects to the timing mark.
What if there's something else in the way, Gil? What will it do?
It won't move that effect.
Okay.
So let's put.
Would it move the timing mark if the effect was selected last? Or?
No, it shouldn't move timing marks. So if I put an effect here, then highlight these and this guy, and say align both times. Oh, it just made a liar out of me. So I consider that a bug I'll have to go look at. That shouldn't.
Ooh, it overlaps.
Yeah, that'll cause a crash probably. So.
See, I told you I can break anything, Gil.
Well, that's what happens every time I add a feature. I add a bug along with it. You know.
There you go. Pop up a dialogue. Say, "Are you trying to pull a Wolfie?"
I wonder if that's just an edge condition. So if I put it like that. Yeah, see, that's a boundary condition because this one was fully encompassed inside of where it was landing. I must not be checking that. So there needs to be a little bit extra code there to block that.
Glad I asked the question.
That's for release 50.
Match duration. That's almost the same as, no, match duration would be like if I select all these, then say that the reference, and I say match duration, they're all going to go to that length. So I've had some people say, hey, I have a whole bunch of effects and I want them all to be the same size. I'm not sure what size they are. So you can come in and pick an effect and say match duration. Now they're all, well, I might have that highlighted because that didn't work.
You probably didn't have it selected last, I'm guessing.
No, it should have done it. I think that's another. Yeah, that's not reacting the way I expect. I got a feeling that somehow the logic is telling the effect that's blocking itself. So that looks like two things I need to go look at tomorrow because I'm not going to do it tonight. All right, I'm going to have ideas. Anybody else want to take control?
Don't need to take control. I have nothing to show, but I do have a question for anybody using a tune to sign. I mean, obviously, I could create some sequence in XLights that just displays the text on that matrix and play that over and over again. But I also noticed that inside of FPP, there's a script for pixel overlay that does scrolling text multi-matrix. So I guess my question is, for those of you doing a tune to sign, and that's all it's doing, you just want it to constantly scroll, tune to 100.5 or whatever, how are you doing it?
If you're not dynamically changing the sign, I would just create a sequence like you described and just put it in a loop. And then you don't have to worry about it being dependent on anything else. Usually that other stuff's for dynamically displaying stuff on the screen. Like if you wanted to put up a message, type in a message, then you could use the plug-in tools to type live there on the text little part of it. And Brian probably has the name of the plugin. I forget what, or maybe it's not even a plugin. It's just part of the interface there for the Matrix. I think it's called Matrix Tools, I think. But if you're not doing something live dynamically, you probably just want to run a sequence. I run a sequence because I didn't even run it in slave mode, just because I never want the tune to sign to go down.
No, my thought was to run it in slave mode based off all my other pies, and of course then what I'd have to do is name that tune to sequence the same as all my other sequences that would just be on that pie, obviously.
Well, what that allow you to do is keep the color coordination. So if you wanted to keep the color coordination on your sequences, like your sequence is turning red, you could have the sign turn red and the text, you can just keep it in sync as far as colors and stuff like that, your messages and so forth. So that's good for that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could do it standalone. I would just have to get I guess the time, as long as the clocks were synced with that, and it should have internet access, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Well, if it's connected wirelessly, you could actually issue a script command from your master. You could put that right into your playlist. Or your first and your last. It actually turns it on, turns it off. You could create an event, create either an effect sequence that loops, and then you could just create a script that gets remotely triggered from the master. So that could be in your first and your last. If you wanted to do that, or you could create another playlist right before the playlist kicks off that runs that script. So there's many ways to control the standalone mode from your master, the one that's controlling your show, if it's wirelessly connected.
So you use like the start effect looping script, for example.
Yeah, that would be an example. You'd have to do it. You'd have to like couple that with like one of the remote scripts that shows you how to use the Perl to remotely start a script on a remote. It wouldn't be a local command that's issued. It'd be you'd be coupling it with one of those remote scripts. I think there is a remote script that says you'd have to look at the script repository under the remote section, but there's quite a few examples that would get you started. But mainly you are starting a looping effect script is what you're doing.
So you'd export this as an effect, put it on your slave out there, and then run an event on your master that would then send a start looping effect on the slave?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I see there's a remote trigger event script. So it triggers an event on a remote FPP. So I guess I would, the master would call that, and then the event on my slave would be to run the loop effect.
Correct.
Okay.
Or it could be to run it could be to start a playlist.
Sure.
If you want a looping playlist, and then you could issue the stop playlist command at the end from your master. So you could do it multiple different ways, either an effect or an event. An effect, an event that triggers an effect, or an event that triggers a playlist, a non-stopping playlist. Basically, you could issue the playlist command. I think it's a big P to say repeat, and then it'll be as if you just clicked start playlist from the status page. You could select a playlist and hit start.
Yeah.
It'll play repeatedly. Yeah, and then you could issue a stop command, a stop playlist command from the master remotely too, or a stop effect of an event, and that stop event could stop the playlist. So there's several different ways you could actually issue the commands. I think any command that you could issue from the web page could be remotely issued.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I built my matrix, and initially I was going to do a 6x6, and I decided after I got everything in and measured it, decided that wasn't 16 by 9 enough for me.
Yeah.
So I brought it down to a 5x6, and so now I've got some extra panels, and I thought I'll just make a tune sign out of a couple of them.
I'll tell you, for my Tune 2 sign, I run it in standalone mode and just have it set on a schedule when to come on, and I just play the same 1-minute sequence looping. So it just kind of comes along with my show.
Yeah, and I said, yeah, I could probably do that because as long as the times are in sync, and they should be, because the slave will, or that other standalone FPP will have internet access, so the time should come on at the same time. And
if they have internet access, then that's probably the most slam dunk way to do it, is just to create a playlist. Yeah.
Yeah, and just have it standalone.
Those other methods would come into play, but
yeah. Okay, well, lots of options. Thanks, guys.
like I'm about ready to log off.
Again, Gil, thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, very much appreciated, sir.
Sure, no problem.
Well, and not just this, but all the coding you and Keith and everyone else have done.
Yeah.
That's much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Keith, for kind of coming in and explaining some of that stuff, especially the show directory. That'll save a lot of headaches later.
That's okay, not a problem.
We also want to invite everybody back again on Wednesday night.
Absolutely.
I'm fixing to call it good too, so you guys have a good one. Take care.
Hey, David, have you released another firmware yet?
No, I've been actually in real work mode, my real job mode.
That sucked.
But I started doing some stuff. We have one user who has over 140 virtual strings. I won't name names, but
I'm sorry.
so it turned out that you can't upload 140 virtual strings. So I'm trying to fix that. I'm making a tour of the post in the Ajax calls to get, does it in like 40 string increments, because the maximum I set it to was 160. So basically it has to do with buffer space for the actual there's only 8100 bytes, give or take 8192 to be exact, bytes for the socket buffer. So yeah, it doesn't, when you start putting in, especially when you start putting in 32 string names times 160, that's a lot right there. So there's no way I was going to fit it in there. So I'm putting it into where it does it in four calls to receive and 4 calls to post it. So that should be enough with all the data. Figure each virtual string has probably 16 bytes of just data besides the string information. I forget how many settings there are, but some of them are 2 bytes long. So there's quite a bit there. I just never thought, in my mind, I'm like, I'm sure it'll break, but no one's ever going to do more than this. Then Tom Langley, I think he just left. He's doing them. And the reason why he's doing them is because before we used to use smart string controllers, and each controller could do about 150 notes, but each one of those controllers could do like 20 custom strings, 20, like kind of like a virtual string. We call them custom groups. Where you could group them in the 25 different custom groups. Well, each string had that ability, but now when you try to build that into a 16-string controller, 160 is not as many as you would think, especially when you're trying to do like a North Pole that could have 3 sections, grouping sections each, and you got 30 of them, which is I think what his case is. So, yeah. 30, 40 of them. So yeah, he was knocking one string into like 24 sections or something like that. Driving 8 poles from one, power injecting. So.
Yeah, I don't remember how many I went, but I had quite a few on one of them.
Yeah, that's usually the case though, right? You have one element that you want to do that with, or maybe you have one string that might have 3 or 4 substrings, but he had a lot of them, so, and it's good. I don't mind people taking it to the limit, and he just went to the limit. He wouldn't have got 140 if he had long names. If he had 32 string names, 32 character string names, or 30 character string names, he might have only got to 56, as I calculated would be the maximum. Without splitting it up, is you'd be able to get 56 actually if you were taking up all characters for the names or the descriptions. So
yeah, I think I've got one that has 16 and 2 that have 10 on one controller.
Yeah,
but that's worst case on those.
So I'm gonna fix it, get it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep sliding an SD card into my F16. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, that's the next thing. The next thing I'm going to work on. It kind of parlays into what I'm doing for the new controller. The new controller is going to have several new things added to it. Hopefully I fit it all in, which I know if I write it on paper, I'll get it all in. But it's kind of parlaying into that. The new controller will have some type of wireless option. It'll either be able to have an ESP8266 connected directly to it, or it'll have the microchip version that is more powerful than that, but it is probably about $8 more in cost. But in the end run, it would probably be better. Or both. It might have both. If you do the microchip wireless version of it, you won't have the regular PHY and connector on there. You'll just have the microchip. It'll be able to receive probably about 24 universes. So you'll be limited, but the idea with the wireless is not so much to pump a bunch of data wirelessly, because I tried to do that with Ubiquity with Sean's projects. We were pumping out 32 universes wirelessly, and it's just between 32 and 64, and it's not the best way to do a show is to send that many universes wirelessly.
No.
So it's not meant to do that. It's mainly meant for the client and remote feature that we're going to implement with the Pi. So you'll be able to send very little data and make it a remote slave or a remote, and the data will be local to the actual controller on the SD card. So that's the first thing. Wireless will be on the next version of it.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that you'd be able to plug in a Wi-Fi dongle into that USB port you got on these.
No. I only have the controller we use on the F-16 is a 200 megahertz controller. I don't think anybody's written a driver to connect like an Emacs or anything like that to it, and it would be bogged down. First you'd be coming through USB 2.0, so your speeds would be extremely slow, and then I don't even know if such thing. Remember, the Pi is like a 1 gigahertz processor, quad processor, 800 megahertz. In the first version, it's It's like 4 times more capable of doing all that. I don't know of anybody that's connected one of those off-the-shelf dongles to a microchip, but I'll look into it. But yeah, probably not. Just because it is what it is. It's $10 controller.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then I think it would be you'd be spending $10 for that, and it would probably be the same cost as if I added just $10 to putting a little module on. It'd probably be less bandwidth than I can with the microchip wireless solution that's built to do that. I think it operates at like 10 megahertz or something like that, or megabits, SPI. It all comes down to an SPI input to the processor, but the whole software stack is written to receive the wireless from that module. So all you do is change a couple variables in the TCP/IP stacks. Already got the SPI driver written to do the so it's kind of seamless as far as the coding goes once you enable that. So that's why that's probably a nicer solution. But then the other flip side of the coin is that the ESP modules are only $3 a piece. You know what I mean? So It might be a cheap way to add wireless and still keep the Ethernet PHY. So we might have 2 solutions where you can either replace the Ethernet PHY and connector with the wireless, or you could use the ESP with the and keep the actual hardwire connection to the network, and have the ESP as an additional just to receive the sync signal. Nothing more than that. I mean, the ESP has a limited amount of data, especially if you're sending a multicast data on that sync channel. You wouldn't want to bombard the ESP with a bunch of multicast traffic, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was more thinking about driving the web interface through the Wi-Fi, and then still leaving the Ethernet, for your packets for your E131.
But we already have a solution for that, because you could bridge through with the Pi. Because it sounds like there's 2 reasons why you'd want to do that. One is, or 2 scenarios that you'd even have that. One is you're directly connected to your router, and you could just go there right through the Ethernet connection the way it is right now to browse the web page. Or the other one is you're actually not connected to the wired port, and you have that connected to a Pi or something, and you're using to get data through the wired port that way. But you can just bridge through the Pi, wirelessly and connect to there right now. So.
Yeah, that's going to be my scenario. The actual Ethernet stuff is going to be disconnected from the house this year.
Yeah.
So that all the E131 data stays on that network, physical network out there.
But
and
you must.
Then I'll use the wireless.
Wirelessly.
Yeah. Then I'll have a Wi-Fi AP port out there to connect to the Pis.
We've set up 20, 30 people like that. Tom's set up like that. Basically, you just click the little button on the network settings on the Pi to say bridge. You set up a static route on your computer, and you basically send the Ethernet address, the hard-coded Ethernet address of the controller. You just set up a static route to send the data to the wireless portion of the wireless connection or the wireless address of the Pi. The Pi gets it, and because that little button is checked, it forwards it to the Ethernet port. The only gotcha is on the controller. You need to put the gateway of the wired port of the Pi in there, and it's a slam dunk. So, yeah, that's already taken care of.
So that's not going to leak E131 back through the wireless?
No,
because you're bridging.
Well, you can on the Pi you can set the interface that the E131 goes out on. There's a little drop down, so you're setting that to E0 already. Right. So once you set that, it ain't going to try to go back out on the wireless. No.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. The other thing we're adding is the other things I'll keep a little under my. Because next thing you know, there'll be other controllers that can do it. But there's two other items that I'm going to have on there. One is there'll be a real-time clock, because when you get into the slave remote mode or standalone mode, you need to have a real-time clock. Even though there's a position for it now, it was meant to connect to the Pi on the backside, which we might just completely get rid of that whole option of even having the Pi on there to make the board smaller. But we'll put the RTC connected to the microcontroller, and that way.
I like that option. I got my Pi mounted on the back of my F16.
Oh, do you? Wait, just for the power?
No, actually, it's just for space saving inside the box. It's not.
Well, maybe I'll leave the holes there.
Yeah, leave the holes because I've got it just mounted on the back side of it to save space in my box.
Yeah. So we're adding that. We're adding the ability to have because the things I want to do is going to be, I need another time. There's going to be some enhanced logging features with graphs and stuff like that. Well, I might as well tell you, I am adding on the next controller. I'm adding the ability to connect up a cheap eBay current shunt and current sensing to both power inputs. So you'll be able to sense the current on two inputs. These shunts are like $1, and they're external. You'd connect the power to it. You'd run the power through the shunt. The shunt's pretty heavy duty. It can handle up to 50 amps. And then there'd be a single wire that would connect to there'd be a small little board that you'd buy, probably $5 to $10 for both sides. And that would connect to some kind of pin output that you just plug into the board. And then there are two sensing wires, one for each input that would come off those shunts. And then with the real-time clock and everything, you'd be able to show graphs of the current. If you're just running in standalone, if you're just running from a sequencer, it'll basically just show you a time graph. But if you're running standalone, it'll actually show you it'll show you the sequence name, and it'll a graph for the whole time duration of the song. So it'll be more of a people that just like to know information, kind of a bells and whistles type thing.
What would be nice if you're going to throw an RTC on there, be able to schedule your brightness curves.
Yeah, all that could be done.
So when it's, you start your show before completely dark, you can run everything at 100%, and once it gets dark, you can back it off to 75%, save some power.
Yeah, that's been brought up a few times. In fact, some guy, I think he wrote it in on the But that's definitely doable once you got the RTC on there. Right now, the controller's kind of hindered by the RTC not having the. But if the controller's on the internet, I could also easily put in an NTP client right now and get some time back. So, you know, one thing that we can do now on the current versions is just you know, put in an NTP client option, allow you to click that button and you know, if it's on the network, on the internet, then you could get time that way.
Yeah, I just wish the FPP software had curves, had a brightness.
Well, it'd be easy to do.
Yeah, it's just not there. You know, for that Boscoyo ribbon, you know, because I run it at 100% during the day and like 75% twilight hours, and then I drop it down to 30% late night, so it's not so insanely bright out the window.
Yeah, I go full bore the whole night.
Well, it just gets a little bright.
My neighbors like the show, though. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million things you could do. It's just there's only so many programming hours of the day, especially when you got family, kids, everything else, you know. Like right now, there's only one active FPP developer, and that's the captain.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, that little brightness curve really it's just adding a table in between, right in between the output, you know, and you know, being able to associate that with a time.
Well, not necessarily a time, just be able to set it at all. Because right now, like when you go into the FPP and like define the WS 2811 output on it for the GPIO, there's no percentage. You can't set a percentage. It's driving 100% or whatever's in the sequence.
Yeah.
So I had to create multiple sequences and then set up those to run at different times during the schedule.
Yeah.
Got it done. It would have been nice just to be able to, you know, say, okay, run at 75%, click done.
Yeah, put in a request. I mean, you know, if there, it basically, if more, it's kind of like the squeaky wheel. I mean, there are the people that, if it's multiple people, so that would just register one on the tick list, and if there's a 2 or a 3, then people, you know, then the captain might get to it. But, you know, I'm sure having talked to him recently, he's, you know, got a lot on his plate with the.
I'll send you my PayPal address, and as soon as I receive funds, I too will make that request. How much is it worth to you?
Yeah, because typically, you know, it's a good feature to have, but there's a lot of features that everybody wants to. It's just tough to get them all. When there's only one guy and he's worried about the main core of the program.
Yeah, he's writing 2.0 right now, so.
Yeah. Well, he's not writing 2.0.
I thought he was.
Well,
I thought you guys were working on, well, not you guys, but I thought he was working on the 2.0 core.
Well, we kind of have a shift in strategy, and there'll be a 1.9 before there's a 2.0. But I guess let's not get hung up on what the numbers are, because that's kind of a conversation in itself. But mainly, what we're doing is he's redoing the API that runs the whole daemon. And that API could be used for 2.0, but it won't. But the next release won't be 2.0. In other words, we've split the progress moving forward into 2 groups. One is all UI, and the other one is more daemon backend stuff. We've actually made a break now between the 2, but they're not together. So the next release will be 1.9. It'll be all back end. But what it's going to allow us to do is to have more capability of being able to be controlled by sequencers like XLights and Vixen. So they'll be able to create playlists and using this new API, you know, web-based API that is easy to, I guess it's called REST API, you know, where it's easier to communicate with the back end and create playlists and everything that a sequencer would want to control. and we're not too much focused on what 2.0 is focused on, which was the actual user interface having a big uplift. Now, the new user interface can use the same API to when we go to create the new user interface, and that's what we'll call 2.0, and that won't be out this year at all. So there will be no 2.0 out this year at all.
Oh no, I wasn't expecting it this year. Hell no.
But he's kind of working on 1.9 and the new API overhaul using a REST interface, which will give us. Basically, our focus is on making it to where we can make sequencers control FPP and have a seamless experience from within the sequencer itself. So
that'll be nice.
Need to, you should be able to control. At some point, you should be able to control everything from the sequencer. From XLights or Vixen. Those are the two that showed interest in this. And the whole idea is to make it to where we can eliminate this duplication of data from the sequencer or to the to where you don't have to log into both. You could just do it from one interface.
Yeah, that'll be nice. You're talking about also being able to set up channels and all that stuff. If you wanted to,
we're not bringing the controllers into it for the most part, but yeah, universes, anything that's in FPP that's also in Vixen, or anything that's in FPP, pretty much. You have XLights, you'd have a screen that's very similar, and you just hit send, and it would upload all your settings to the FPP, and you would need to open up the FPP to hopefully set it up at all.
Very nice.
You had a good XLights, if we did all this, and this might be stuff maybe I'll talk with Keith about, as we get closer, but the first thing we need to do is make it to where the calls, the REST calls from to FPP and the response fields are very well documented and very nice user interface. Makes it easy for people to do that without a bunch of AJAX calls that are, convoluted and stuff like that. Just having a real nice REST interface, and that's what we're working on. So that's kind of like a major deal. So a lot of other things are nice, but just at this point in the development, it's not really the main focus.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Sounds like it's heading in a really cool direction. Being able to transport all this information back and forth without having to log into multiple interfaces is going to be nice.
Yeah. That's kind of where FPP's headed as far as the main gist of what he's working on, which he is the main developer. I haven't worked on it in years. So, and I'm still working on the controller, so I don't see me going back to that side of it. Although I did, I might do some multitasking if you need some help with all that, so we'll see. But the curve seems like it could be done.
Yeah.
But again, there, you need user interface to do that. You need a place to, the little combo box to select the 10 to whatever %. So, but after that, it's pretty slam dunk. All of it's done with lookup tables. A 256 byte lookup table. So,
yeah,
it's pretty easy to implement. It's nothing hard. You just put a little call to the lookup table instead of, you got your value from 0 to 255. Instead of outputting that directly, you just do a quick little lookup on that value based on the brightness curve. Pretty slam dunk. It's
I was just surprised it wasn't there.
Well, because when he first, that whole pixel thing just kind of came about in the last 6, 7, 8 months.
So it didn't have 2811 output before that?
No.
Oh,
no,
I didn't know.
About 6, 7 months, 8 months ago, they had a breakthrough. For a while there, they couldn't. There was code out there that tried to get it done, do the pulse width modulation of it, but it had errors, and it was basically had the pixels, blinking and stuff like that. And then there was one guy that developed a good library for it, and it wasn't too long ago. I think it was sometime this year, and that's why you saw the Pi hats and stuff take off. Because before that, you couldn't drive them really.
Until just recently, I didn't even dive into the Pi stuff. I mean, last year everything ran straight from Vixen.
Yeah.
So I'm just now getting into it, so I didn't know what we didn't have last year.
Yeah, it's always you do the simplest, implementation to begin with. And I think the simplest implementation, the way it was implemented the way it is now, because that's the way the driver was written, I think, for the most part, where it had a start address, or I don't know. We always do the simplest implementation to get it running. And then you add bells and whistles, but now those bells and whistles are like up against the 1.9 rewrite.
Yeah.
So. Now, there's a lot of people that want them, especially if you're used to having a lot of that stuff with the F16 V2.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to go back to the.
Yes, very
in my
hard.
mind, I'm thinking, well, that's why the F16 V2 is the F16 V2.
Yeah. Yeah. One of these days, I'll actually probably end up putting that 682 up for sale. Just get rid of it because I'm never going to use that damn thing, honestly.
Well, it's a good controller now with the new firmware. It's probably pretty decent. I've never seen in the 682. I've seen the 6804. In fact, I have Clyde's. If Clyde's still in line, I'm holding it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. But you know what? I from what I understand, I don't know if anybody knows any different, but I don't believe the GE color effects have been fixed yet.
On what?
For the 682.
Oh, you mean the new firmware?
Yeah, the new firmware doesn't, from what I understand, does not support yet the GE color effects. So you can run 16 outputs at, I don't know how many channels it is, but if you, I use GE color effects. So the only controller out there now that can run them is a Falcon.
Oh well, you can go back to the old firmware, right?
Yeah, well, but the frustration of dealing with the clusters has always been the biggest issue with them, and then wasting the outputs that you can't use. That's what's,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll get it going because logically the code, it doesn't seem like it's
Well, no, and I never anticipated getting rid of my 682s at all. I mean, they're a tool in the toolbox, but at the same time, if the Falcon makes it easier, which the setup page is it's just way so much easier. There was a young man who was frustrated because he updated the firmware in the Falcon the other day, and he got so upset because it erased and set everything back to default. And it said it took him 2 days to get it set up the right way. I'm like, okay, well, now you get a chance to do it again, and hopefully it won't take you 2 days. And, that's part of the learning curve, But
now you have a save.
Yeah, now you have a save.
Yeah, I don't know what version he was from. He might have been like from 1.00 or something like that.
No, he just got his controllers this year, so it's probably 1.65, something like that.
I don't think those erased they didn't think they erased the configuration.
They did not on mine, David.
Well, I'm not going to point fingers because, I've seen some weird scenarios happen.
Yeah.
Crap happens, that's just the way it is,
2 days, though, yeah, it sounds like he needs a little...
He's learning. That's what...
Yeah, he needs a little learning.
He's learning. That's what he told me. You're learning, buddy. That's welcome to the wonderful world of pixels. You're going to beat your head off the wall more times than you care to.
The only thing I could think of is maybe he's going to like 50 different elements that have different string counts, but typically if you got a matrix or megatree or something like that, or even, your average mini trees or whatever, you got multiple ports that are very similar that you could use the clone feature on and stuff. So
yeah.
I've seen a few setups though where each string was a different one, different order, different everything.
Now you can still go in. I was talking to somebody earlier today or yesterday. I can't remember which. You're still able to insert a super string. I don't know. I can't remember the terminology because I don't use it.
Virtual string.
Virtual string. Thank you. And you're able to insert it and use, let's say, universe 1, pixel 1 through 100. Okay, and then at the end of that string, you can connect on universe 7. Pixel.
Yeah, you can use any start channel in the whole, whatever you're receiving on the E131 side, you could use any start channel for any, basically virtual strings inside internally in the controller, I call them virtual strings, but every string is a virtual string in the controller as far as the controller is concerned. So whenever you get the standard controller, you have 16 virtual strings So any string or any virtual string, whatever it is, could start at any part, any channel or any universe or whatever's being received. It could be set to that. If you're in absolute mode and you're receiving channels from 1 to 32,000, any string can start between 1 and 32,000. If you're in universe mode and you're receiving universes 1 to 32, any string could have a universe of 1 to 32, a start channel from 1 to whatever the size of your universes are. So
okay.
No,
The other question that they had, and I'm pretty sure that the answer is yes. If you have on your virtual string, let's say you need to have some null pixels in there, is there the ability to put the null pixels in for that virtual string?
Virtual string, the only setting that's different from a virtual string, from the string that's on the top, is the string type, because obviously a virtual string
has to send the same data.
Yeah. Other than that, every single setting that there is on a string is available on a virtual string.
Well, okay. Mine's still packed up in the shop, so I haven't.
Yeah, it's just another row that, and only the top row has the string type, basically.
Okay.
Yep, they're exactly the same. You can set forward, reverse, RGB, 100%, nulls, zigzags, everything.
Perfect.
So what you would do is, if you wanted to put a null, like say you had a string that was 100 long and you wanted to put 2 nulls in there, you had 250 node segments, you know, and you wanted, and they were 15 feet apart, and you want to put a null node in between, or let's say 2 null nodes in between. You would just create 3 virtual strings. The first one would be 1 to 50 pixels. The next one would just be 1 pixel long, and it would give you would say null node equals 1, and then the last one would be 50 nodes. It would be 51 to 100, and so you can insert null nodes in the middle of strings by just basically creating a virtual string in the middle of the 2 segments.
Just quick question.
Or you could,
nulls that are there, David?
I even apologize for that. You just create 2 virtual strings, and the second one has a null node set to 1. That's even the easier way to do it.
Yeah. Doesn't the null come before the string?
Correct. It always comes before the string.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say. You just create 2 strings and call it a day.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, because that's exactly what I thought you could do. I don't care to use null nodes. I'd rather put, if I have, let's say I have my pixel count is 50, but I have 3 pixels that have to be data carriers. They have to be nulls. I just count them in the model and I include them, but I never sequence them.
Yeah, but then you have a chance of basically the null nodes makes it seamless. You don't need to worry about it in the software, and they'll never turn on from that point on. So it kind of just gets rid of that whole needing to account for those channels, because now you don't have a string that would basically be, you know, where all the channels would be in an order. Now you have to be conscious to not, you know, well, I guess once you do it in the sequencer, you're fine. You know, it's just it just removes all that.
Right.
You know.
All right. Well, hey, I'm going to get off here because I have to work in 5.5 hours. So you all have a great night. Thanks for everything, guys. I really appreciate it.
Good to hear you again.
Good seeing you guys. Take care.
Yep. Hey, David?
Yes.
Any chance in hell I can put in a request?
Now, I do requests a lot quicker because I'm in charge of the pixel. Right, I mean, so if it's a good request, I'll add it in there. I'm adding stuff in there, you know, 3 or 4 things in there right now.
Well, it's more of an interface thing, and it's something that I ran into when I was setting up my
a label thing.
My spiderweb. No, it has nothing to do with labels.
Okay.
It has to do with the pixel count and the start channels.
Yeah.
Can we get maybe a little icon next to the end channel that sits between the group count and the direction box, and a little icon, maybe a down arrow or something, that would, if you click it, it would take that ending channel, add 1 to it, and update the next start channel for the substring?
Yeah, if you
because right now I have to copy that
substring. What does that mean?
You know, okay. Okay. For example, I have on the first level, I have the web radio 1 start channel 4609 12 pixels.
Yeah.
Okay. It ends in 4644.
Yeah.
All right. I had to copy paste 4644 paste it into start channel, change the 4 to a 5 to start the next one at 4645. Then throw in 14 channels, and then copy paste that one.
Why is it the same count as the one before it?
No, I got 12 and 14, then 12 and 14, then 12 and 14.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So it would be nice, I could just not
Because
worry
right
about
now I type it in. I don't copy and paste any. I would just look at the end channel and I would type in one more. But I
right.
see
Well, same.
you want to do it. Yeah, but I mean, copying on and paste when I could just type into 4 or 5 digits seems quicker to me. But I hear what you're saying, where you can just transfer that plus 1 to the next.
Right. So I could just get the first one, start channel right, and then just fill in pixel counts, boom, 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 and then just click the little icon, bam, 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 and now they're all in sequence.
Yeah. I'd almost rather have a toggle mode, some kind of button at the top where you basically say increment by where you toggle it, and then it just does it automatically, where you don't have a bunch of buttons. You only have one button to turn on that feature.
Right, but which ones would it do it to?
It would, whenever you type in node count or start channel or change any of the, it would do it to the ones below that, I would think.
Oh, okay. That makes sense then. Yeah.
Basically auto increment.
Yep. So if I came in the middle and changed one of them to say 15 pixels, it would automatically update every single one after that if I had that on-off thing.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be sweet. That'd be good.
I mean, because a bunch of little buttons all over the place it's cumbersome. But maybe an auto increment type thing. At the top where you just check it, or a button that you toggle on off, and then when you change any parameter on a string, anything lower than that would catch all the errors, right? Because anytime you go up higher, it'll do anything lower. Anytime you go, that type of thing. And possibly, if you did something like that, you'd probably want a reload button too. That way, in case you want to get back what you had, and then it'll requery the actual controller for the data again. In case because if you have that on, the moment you change one thing, let's say close to the top, everything changes, and you go, whoa, wait a minute, I didn't want to do that.
Well, all browsers have a reload button.
That's true, but not every user thinks, oh man, maybe I should hit the F5 or reload.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it was just because I had it initially. They were all 12 channels or 12 pixels per piece, and then I looked at the web when I built it, and the diagonals were kind of short because they were the same length as the verticals and the horizontals. So I added 2 pixels to the end of each one of those. So then I had to come back and change the 12s to 14s, and then I had to redo all the channel counts.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it really comes into play mainly when things are not the same and you have different string nodes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you have a whole bunch of duplicates, yeah, whatever. Because then you can just you click plus, it automatically updates, clone string, done.
Yeah.
And the same applied to my arches, because I have a 3-pixel candle, a 1 pixel topper, then 27 pixels for an arch, then another 3 pixels for a candle, then another 1 pixel for a top. So I had the same issue there as well.
Yeah.
I just thought if you're going to
it could come in handy for those that like to keep everything in order. I don't know how many times I've come in and seen people that have, output number 1 on universe 26 and output number 7 on universe 8, and in other words, they're not in order.
And that's probably how that happened.
Yeah, well,
they probably put some in and then changed node counts.
I don't know.
And the node counts pushed the overlap.
No, it's just some people they don't have an order, basically.
They're not organized.
There's just no order.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it'd be easy to do. It'd be, you just have to create one function that does the sorting based on the index of where you're at,
Yeah.
And,
you already display that.
The current channel the current one as you type in is going to change, so right after you press a key, those values are, now I guess the only thing that could get out of whack is that the ones above it, they might not follow suit, but that's the nature of the beast. I can't take for granted that you want to change anything above there. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just change everything past it because that's 90% of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to go in and I'm going to change 12 to 14. Now I need to bump everything else 2 pixels down.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be a nice little feature.
It would.
It wouldn't be hard to implement. It's all jQuery JavaScript stuff, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I thought maybe if you had a chance and the time to do so.
Yeah.
Just be another nifty little change. Say, oh, look what I can do.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured you already calling JavaScript up. Update that little label anyway.
Reference it. Send me an email that way I can reference it.
Okay.
You know, doesn't fade that way. When if I think of it, I'll go, oh, what was that?
What the hell was Wolfie talking about?
Yeah. Half the battle's just remembering everything. I guess I could add it to my to-do list. I do have a little to-do list.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured I'd throw that out there. Just maybe.
All of it's nice.
Yeah.
Little stuff.
Oh. All right, David. I think I'm going to head out. Kids are probably passed out already. It's 11 o'clock.
All right.
Good talking to you again. Thanks, buddy.
Later on, man.
See y'all later.
You do. When are you posting your new Falcon hat on the website?
Well, mainly I just got to send those guys the Gerber files. I've already got it all hammered out, and I've purchased 200 or 300 of them already. I just have to send them the Gerber files for them to start building them. When I do that, I'll probably put them up on there. I typically don't like to put stuff up on there until I got a real life picture of it, but I really think this one's a slam dunk. So I'm thinking probably by the end of the weekend there'll be a link to buy them up there.
Nice. Well, I'm already in for a couple, so thanks for
I think I decided on $32 is what they'll be.
You gotta up the price on that. You gotta feed your kids. Come on, man.
Well, maybe 35. I don't know. It'll be either one of the two. I had someone talking to me about that, and I don't know. You know, I had a lot of points saved up from the company that I deal with. I had a lot of points, so I was able to actually buy them for only half the cost.
Wow.
Because I had that many points saved up from all the F16 V2 controllers that I've bought. So I'm a little bit more lenient on this first batch since I only paid half of what I was expecting to pay for them. But again, that's money that's my money, right? So, but you know, I passed it on a little bit. $32 seems okay. It looks like the other one was offered for like $28, but didn't have a couple things, you know, that this one has: buffer chips, DMX port, that type of thing. It's fully assembled. Theirs was fully assembled. I guess the big advantage is you could, you know, at some point in the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to just buy them at the store at will without waiting for a co-op or group buy, and they'll be shipping within a day or 3 days. Typically, my shipping isn't the fastest because I can't ship every single day, just due to the fact I got kids, a family, and, you know, I work a full-time job. So I probably ship like twice a week, you know, for the most part, where I pull out all the shipping stuff and start boxing stuff up for a few hours. So
Hey, nobody said you were allowed to have a life, man. Come on.
yeah, and I take over the kitchen too because I don't like to be down in the basement. I don't know, either does my kids. None of us like to be in the basement. My wife goes down there to work out and stuff. We got a couple bedrooms down there, but it just kind of feels desolate, you know. And my office is on the first floor, you know, so I kind of like to be on the first floor because I work on the first floor. So a lot of my tools and oscilloscopes and stuff, and, you know, basically I feel at home. So I do take over the kitchen island and one little rollaway little microwave cart, so when I do it all. But yeah, wow. So that's the thing. So you think 32 is too little?
Oh yeah, really? Because I mean, it's gonna have the clock on it, right?
Oh yeah. I don't want to make them different. I just kind of want to make one size fits all. And if you want like watered down version and build it yourself, you know, Ron P sells one that you could probably put together. But the problem with those is then you got to go to DigiKey and spend $9 on shipping, and by the time you're done, you spent $27 already anyway.
Yeah.
So, and then you got to build it yourself. And then when you start like saying, okay, this one doesn't, I might be